right, we're about to get started, everybody. Hold on. I can't, like, what are you doing? I'm trying to get ready for the show, and you're running around under my desk like a maniac, and you're endangering yourself and others. You're putting the entire West Coast at risk because all you have to do is bite the one wire and everything goes down. I'm not saying that I pipe my high speed internet off of a military site because of a small device I planted somewhere in a high rise close to a military base. I'm not saying that. I'm allowing for the inference therein. And you, my young man, become our problem child. You are becoming terrible and a destroyer of worlds. Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to see you. Hi, chat room. Elevated volume. Am I loud already? Okay. Jojo, what a boy. Look at this little buddy. Look how wonderful. What are you doing? Can I close the door now? Can I do my show? And yeah, did you find something else that was interesting to you, Mr. Chase Everything? My God, man. Licorice is a great name for a black cat. That's hilarious. Because there's only one form of licorice. I'm sorry. Whatever you think Twizzlers or Red Vine are, they're not licorice. I'm just telling you. If it doesn't have a niece and it's not black and it doesn't like annoy half the population, it's not licorice. I'm just saying. But this is Bucky, who is, by the way, very comfortable sitting on my arm until it loses all feeling. Like I could walk around with him just draped on my arm. I'm also not as close here. I'll say check. How about that? Am I louder? I'm definitely loud today. Hold on. I want to stay out of the red zone. Oh yeah. No problem, Smarty Pants. Happy birthday. Yes, Bucky is turning into a cat. His head's still small, but his body's catching up. All right, can I put you out there? Can I get on with it, please? I have a morning show to do. It's very serious. There's serious things going on. And cats are the greatest destroyer of productivity in the history of the world. At least a dog, you throw the ball for a little bit, you walk them, they take a shit, and then they're exhausted the rest of the day. You guys make your own hours. Put him on as a neck muff. He doesn't quite do that yet. He'll drape over my shoulder, facing the wrong way though, and you don't need black cat butt, which is just like it's full moon. It's a full moon tonight. At you the whole time. Can I please? Thank you. You're so cute though. Good God. Okay, here you go. Hold on. I'll treat you in a little bit. Okay, be good. Go use the bathroom. That's a great idea. Doesn't he know that this is a serious news show? It's the greatest live stream in the history of live streams, and that you can't just expect everything to grind to a halt because cats are lovely. It's just not right on any front. Hit the like, share the show. Cat owners, dog owners, pet owners. Who's got a ferret? You know what I'm talking about. Shout out to all the people who've got snakes and are worried about the terrarium opening. So it's Halloween next week. And Tara Dublin, by the way, will be with us in the second hour. But for the first hour, it's just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us, you and I. Couple things. I saw I tried to fall asleep at a reasonable hour last night, failed miserably because I started watching the movie Monsters. That is is it on Netflix? It's not on Netflix. It's on something else. It's on Paramount. It's on Hulu. It's on one of those. This thing about being an actor is that I have subscription to all of them because I can write them off. It's good, I guess. Sure. Anyways, it was good. It was nice. It was just the right kind of scary, good stuff. And it made me. It's HBO. Okay, thank you very much. It was worth it. Yeah, it was a good scary movie. It had a lot of jump scares and just enough mystery, but just enough answer to the mystery where you didn't feel like they were just making shit up as they went along. It worked out very well. I enjoyed it. And I have always thought, like, my favorite horror films of all time, like, people always throw around The Shining, which I would say is more of a thriller, although it does have horror elements to it. I mean, it does have an axe murderer in it. Spoiler alert. But overall, it's, comparatively, compared to your sort of slasher films, which are definitely horror, it's more of a thriller in that regard, and kind of a psychological thriller. Is it really happening? Is any of it really happening? Is it all just happening in Jack's head? That kind of stuff, which is, a great way to look at it. And the documentary is, The Shining is a documentary. There is a documentary about it called Room 237, which is about the theories of the conspiracy theories that abound around The Shining, and this kind of, can I just say for the record, fucking ridiculous idea that we faked the moon landing, and they had Stanley Kubrick direct got a big Hollywood director to help them film it because they wanted it dramatic. Okay, first of all, the directors don't give you the special effects. They have special effects coordinators that do that. Cameramen, you would get the DP, perhaps, the director of photography of a major film, if you wanted to look a certain way or something, even if you needed that. But the idea that you would have to, like, hire a Hollywood director to get it right is just stupid. It's so ridiculous. It breaks down instantly the minute you think past the end of your nose, as so many conspiracies do. And I love me a good conspiracy theory. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy them. I'll rabbit hole the different elements of it, but I only take it as seriously as to the level of which it can. Daily Beast, John Oliver rips Trump move far more shocking than the White House teardown. There's a lot. What are you talking about? There's tons of. I'm kidding with you. I mean, what is he talking about? There are lots of things. The end of, like, the denial of SNAP benefits for next month, during Thanksgiving, I would argue is worse than White House teardowns, because construction can be done and undone. I got news for you. Whoever the next president is, they're going to remove all the gold laminate spray paint bullshit that's in the White House, and, like, have it, like, thumb scraped off and put in Fort Knox or some shit. And the Epstein ballroom will get a makeover as well. Like, ostentatious nouveau riche douchebag is not an aesthetic, no matter how much Trump wants to think it is. That said, okay, what my point is before I get into the news of the day is, favorite horror film, like, or Halloween film. You could throw that out there too, because some people just like watching Hocus Pocus or something like that, which is totally fine. And so, yeah, the Epstein Ballroom, which is what it will be called, by the way. Halloween's very good. The original House of a Thousand Corpses, that's hardcore. It's like Last House on the Left, and which is brutal. And Cannibal Holocaust. I've seen all of them, by the way, by and large. I mean, I'm sure I've missed a few over the years, but I've seen the heavy hitters. Dead Girl. I don't know if you've ever seen Dead Girl. That's super fucked up. Yeah, I own that one. It's an indie zombie movie with one zombie in it. Evil Dead 2, right? Yeah, Dead Girl is absolutely insane, and yet there's such a realism to it. Am I right? That's what's crazy about it, is that it's an insane premise with a like a realistic response by the characters in it. Yeah, I Spit on Your Grave. The original is really heavy as well. Yep, the original Night of the Living Dead. Trick or Treat. I like Trick or Treat, which is the rock and roll version, which has the soundtrack by Fastway. Um, Ghost Watch, all right, a good one. Yeah. Fright Night. Welcome to Fright Night. For real. The original, of course. Blair Witch Project is silly. I wanted to kill all the characters myself. I was like, move over, witch. These people are annoying. Antichrist is incredible. Brandon, absolutely. I mean, most of Lars von Trier's entire oeuvre is terrifying, even when he tries not to be. But Antichrist is rough. The first whatever 6 minutes, however long the opening sequence is some of the most terrifying, tense film work in cinema. Right up there with the opening of Inglourious Bastards. The opening scene. I would argue that the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards is in and of itself a horror film. Yeah, move over, witch, get a number. That's how I felt. Trump's leaving a monument to it. Yeah, but they're calling it like the Liberty Arch or something like that. It won't be called the Trump Arch, no matter what anybody does, and they'll rename it after real war heroes after he's gone. It won't matter. I'm not worried about his temporary impact on things. I'm worried about the permanent impact that he will have. That the people that will be harmed by his SNAP benefits and his fake fucking peace deals, which we have to get to. That said, right now, currently running, I liked Monsters That's New, worth a view. It's got some really nice. It's really like it plays out really well. It's got it's got a combination of a lot of things, in it. Witch Story, kind of a little bit of Walking Dead-ish kind of stuff in it. A little Blair Witchy, a little the Kiss I Love It Loud video. Everything's in there. You'll see what I mean if you know the video. Anyways, Audition, Japanese horror film. Brutal. Very scary. Worth a watch for Halloween. Audition. Yeah. Antichrist is right up there. Martyrs. Another one, which is one of those fascinating ones where it attempts. Yeah, Train to Busan's great. Martyrs is one of those where at the end of it attempts, whether you know it does or not, to get you to sympathize with the goals of the villain, the monster in it, that kind of thing. Howling is good. Yep. As far as your like big standard movies go, I like Fright Night. Almost the scariest part of Fright Night, the original, is when what is it? Steven, what's his name, who plays Brewster's best friend? Oh, you're so cool, Brewster. His best friend turns into a vampire. Like that turn where he becomes like the Renfield-ish vampire in it is so sad. Right? I think of all the other stuff in the movie, and the vampire's pretty good, and but all that stuff is great. Yeah, Evil Ed. Evil Ed is so good in that, and the actor who played him ended up, I think, doing gay porn, and then became a drug addict, and then is no more. Is that the theory? It's a little watery out there, the details. Either way, fantastic in that, and brought a level of humanity to it that I was really, I was struck by more than any other thing in the movie. So vampire-wise, I would go to the original Fright Night in the last few decades, even above like Dracula and this stuff. If only because Dracula has Keanu Reeves in it, and while I love him in John Wick, and he's a lovely human being, he's classical acting not his thing. And he was also in 976 Evil. That was his follow-up. Yeah, American Werewolf in London is terrific. Session 9 is good. But like for Werewolf, there's American Werewolf in London. There's The Howling. There's Wolfen, which is also good. Christine is actually really good too. That's another one of those questions. Is like, is it really happening, or is he just nuts? And you can look at it from both of those ways. And by the way, there is a cultural value to horror films They temper. Think of it as, you know how like people go off to war and they come back hardened, and then shit breaks down in some situation, like there's a riot or some dude pulls a gun or whatever, and the military vet just grabs the guy's gun and disarms him and that kind of stuff because he doesn't have the panic reflex. He's experienced so much of it, or she have experienced it so much that they do what other people who are too afraid to do it will do. Okay. The purpose of horror films, especially during your teen years, is to watch them experience something terrifying that your nervous system would freak out about in a safe environment, so that, and get your mind working. Part of the value of a horror film is the frustrating exit. Like, why don't they just, why go out, stop, put down the flashlight's broken, stay in the house, right? All those things you do, there's value in that. Right? What would you do in this situation? While you're being terrified, would you make the right decision? All that kind of stuff. And so there's a genuine value to, and scary stories were this thing. I mean, they were, if you look at the Grimm fairy tales, they were like the stranger danger after school specials before there was, before everybody had a library, access to a library. Right? Alien is great. The original Alien is indeed a horror film. The second one is an action thriller. It's a war movie. It's Alive. The ad was scarier than the movie. Don't Go by the Lake. Yep. How I learned to survive a plane ride with snakes in it. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd cry and wet myself. Well, that's the whole point, is that initially you would. The original Terminator is definitely a horror movie. I remember I went to see the Terminator at the theater, and I was waiting for my friends outside the theater because I was early. You're welcome. And a guy walked up to me and went, "Wow, this is Terminator, man. It's a scary concept, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Yep, I agree." And I felt it was like Woody Allen in Annie Hall, when the guys walk up, "Alvy Singer, this guy's on television." This is before I was on TV, but I'm standing there like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Robert Redford. Yeah." Anyway, so the guy's like, "Can you imagine that if, there was like this thing that, came after you no matter what you did, it was always trying to destroy you and it just fixated on you?" And I was like, "Yeah, it'd be pretty, Of course, I was also a self-involved macho, whatever, 16-year-old. So I would identify with Reese, and I'd be yelling at every attractive girl around me, "Come with me if you want to live." Literally. Anyway, so he goes, what if I told you that really was happening?" And I was like, "Okay, let's hear it." And he went, "The devil, Satan, is trying to get your immortal soul, and the only way to avoid him is through Jesus Christ." And he handed me like a card for his like super crazy church, and I was like, "Save it. I've read the Bible more times than you have. Thank you please move on to people who have less information than you do. You will not find one here." Also, for the record, any church that sells you the idea that you can even be separate from God, and that it's something you must bind yourself to, is actually a church of Satan anyway. So sorry to bum you out, dude, but you actually work for the devil. Imagine that. If you just found out one day, you woke up and you realized you're like the guy in, as I'd have to time travel to this too, but you're like the guy in Terminator 2 who wakes up one day and realizes he works for Skynet before everything goes to shit. You're that guy. You work for the Destroyer. I do? Yep. Sorry. Meanwhile, I love the Kiss album Destroyer. So, anyways, if hence the name of my first stand-up special, Charmageddon, because I can destroy your worldview and you'll still like me. Hi there. How are you? Terminator is becoming reality? No, it's not. It's much more complicated. I would argue we are much closer to Gene Simmons's character in Runaway. As silly as people were, like, everybody owes Michael Crichton a fucking apology, because Runaway, like, if I could reboot a series right now on on Netflix, I would make a series out of Runaway, the Tom Selleck movie with Cynthia Rhodes and Gene Simmons. Yep. The serpent did humanity a favor, gave us the ability to think freely. Was that a sinful act? Well, ultimately, there is no faith without free will. And therefore, God cannot exist in the mind of man, anyways, any more than he could in the mind of a schnauzer, unless they have free will to believe in something they cannot see. So until you have intelligence, you can't have faith. So you could argue, wait for this one, that the eating of the apple was the creation of God. I need an explosive effect that happens, like one of those GIFs where their head blows up. And by the way, I will argue that with any theologian until they tap out. And I know you'd love to see it. Oxford, anytime you want. Anytime you want. I will argue that all churches are technically the devil's work, because God would never argue with for separation from his own creations. He would know it was impossible. So anybody who argues you can even be separate is therefore Satan, who was also created by God. And you go, okay, this is just part of a game, and that life on earth is a simulation. Therefore, we're not talking about a God. We're talking about like a technological manager that operates outside this digital bubble we're in. This is just part of our training and stuff. And so I will react and, as maturely as I possibly can in the environment that I'm in, understanding that I'm actually playing a combination of Call of Duty and Minecraft. Was it Satan? Yeah. And that divinity can't ever be severed. This is good. Satan killed like 10 people in the Bible and God killed millions. Well, technically speaking, God allowed Satan to kill 10 million because humans broke with him and started serving him. And the wages of sin are death. So again, that's another conversation too. It's like, how can God allow blah, blah, blah to happen? Is very much in line with the horror movie thing. You can learn from a horror movie, but when you're a kid, you can watch a ghost story, and it's scary enough, and it spooks you enough. You'll even a cartoon, like a fucking Scooby-Doo cartoon, will jump scare a little kid. But as you get older, you need to be more complex. And if you'll notice that the horror gets more realistic and denser in its reality, what you might consider horror when you're in your 20s, even if you're older, I would argue that movies like Taken and Hostage and what's the one? Don't Say a Word, the Brittany Murphy movie, where they kidnap somebody's kid and they're holding your kid ransom, is way more horrifying to a mature adult than the idea that there's a slasher in the fucking room, because you're like, your brain immediately goes, okay, I'll smash a window. Now I also have a knife, and even if it means cutting my hand, I will get that. Like your brain shifts when you're older, but the idea that your loved one is in another room or another space or far away, and you have to do something or they will die because you're responsible for them but unable to respond. It's terrifying. The depth of that is more terrifying than the idea that there's a monster loose anywhere, right? Because you mature past it. Yeah, the same thing would be true of like the growth patterns of spirits and reincarnation. If you were creating an artificial environment where people are trained what it's like to be a good human or a good whatever we are outside this thing, then you would want the beginning. It would be very, crayons and hammers. It'd be very dopey, and your villains would be very obvious. And then as you mature, your villains would get more dense and be more complex, and you would be confronted with your own weaknesses at the same time. Anyone ever play? Yeah, the original Resident Evil was really scary. So good. Because it was shot, like, it wasn't just a run and gun first person. It was the only angles available to you were horror film angles. So the upper right shot down this way, the ground shot of the monster coming around the corner, and you had to fight with blind spots. It was really great. After they turned it into just kind of a regular gameplay, it lost interest for me. We have had a meetup with the enemy, and it is us, right? That's the idea. Silent Hill on PS2, play it in the dark. You know what's really great is the binaural recording of The Mist. Burke, hold on. Let's see. Yes, sounds good. Has anybody ever listened to that? The audio recording of The Mist, the book, the Stephen King. Yeah, okay. The movies are okay, but the binaural where they use stereo audio, where like when there's a bee flying around, it goes like, and you sit there in headphones. And when I was in high school, we would sit there and everybody would listen to it like with headphones on with their eyes closed. It's really good. It's a great one. The other thing too is my semi-annual tradition. We do it every couple of years of listening to the original War of the Worlds radio broadcast. There you go. So there ended the lesson. First half hour done, and now let's get on to the truly horrifying. And there are. Let's see if I can open this little guy and find out. It should come as no surprise, by the way, that Trump got an MRI. And I'm fairly certain they did a brain scan and found nothing. But his MRI, like they were keeping that under wraps. They were hiding the fact that he had an MRI by saying advanced imaging, so that by and large, maggots would think they're using a med bed on him and he's going to live forever. And I have no doubt, by the way, that RFK Jr. and Don Jr. and who else? And there's Dr. Oz and all these guys are going to start jacking him up on GLP 1s or 2s like retatrutide and all these peptides that are coming out sometime in the near future, because his fate is really hard. The problem is his fate is as physical as it is, as bad as his physical situation is, his mental decay is worse. And so you can deal with sort of the cardiovascular issues that someone has. You can deal with any kind of degradation of their internal organs from disease or age or both. But the problem is you can't repack the damage. You can't fix the damage in the brain caused by those things the way you can fix the other organs. You can. This idea that once you have a certain amount of brain cells, once they're gone, they never come back is a myth. It's been around for a very long time, but it's not easy, and it takes you got to be young enough where you're making fresh tissue all the time. Anyways, most of the time, it's not something you do at 79 years old while you're still eating garbage and while your schedule even does not allow you. And by the way, look at Rubio's face. This is the face of someone who's concerned about every word that this person is saying. If you saw somebody next to their grandfather or their uncle or their friend's dad, and their friend's dad was going to start telling a story, and you're like, oh shit, the last time he started telling a story, he said the N-word in a shopping mall, right? You know that face. I know some of you know that face. Or some other pejorative, something anti-gay or whatever, you know what I mean? Like this thing where they just let it slip. something that was okay to say when they were young, and they don't mean anything by it, but they don't know now it's bad. So they, right? Okay. And your friend goes, oh shit, here it comes. That's where we are with this. No, and Adobe Acrobat apparently, which is a big thing.
As a director of finance, I'm managing
Fabulous.
15 and 20 contracts a month.
I'm not sponsored by
With
Adobe Acrobat.
AI
I'm just
Assistant,
saying.
I can summarize long contracts and identify key terms instantly. AI Assistant helps me compare two different versions of the same document for key changes. It makes me feel very confident that nothing's...
Very exciting. Cool. All right, now keep playing. Hold on. Play. What's happening? Just do it. I paused it, didn't I, by trying to click it. Son of a... Play again. Now I got to watch the ad again. Is that what happens? Oh, it's a new one. Everything's AI powered. This should be Fried AI at this point. You know what? I'm just going to find the audio on a YouTube channel, but let's see. Trump gaggles with YouTube. There we go. We'll go to whoops, I don't want to go to studio. I want to just have YouTube. You crazy thing. Hold on, I'll reopen this. Maybe it'll wake up while I'm doing this. Leave it alone. Just let it play. Nope, just stuck again. Super. Great, guys. Really well done, Daily Beast or whoever. All right, let me find it over here. Isn't this fun? By the way, hit the like, share the show if you would. We're all freeballing it here as you do. YouTube, there we go. Okay. And then Trump MRI. Because I gotta say, okay, yeah, here he goes. Yeah.
I got.
Okay. This would be, man, I got a lot of windows open because everything is staggering. Look at that. I got to close some of these windows. It's too much stacking. Hold on. I got to close Telegram and I got to close Canva. I'm like using up all my system memory right now because of all the shit I have awake. Quit that. What else do I have open? I don't have Logic open, thank God. Discord's busy. There we go. All right, so hopefully, let's quit. That's Telegram. And ChatGPT Atlas, which has to be using a shit ton of power. QuickTime Player off. Okay, hopefully that'll... There you go. Look how it freed up my... my mouse is easier now. So this is him saying he had an MRI.
An MRI was perfect. Yeah. I mean, I gave you the full results. We had an MRI, and in the machine, you know, the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing. You know, the whole thing. That's yeah, it did the thing or whatever. Like he's shooting the shit like he's on a golf course with a fellow old person.
And it was perfect. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You have chronic venous insufficiency, which is more than likely linked to a bad heart valve or a blockage, you weirdo. That's why you're huffing and puffing. No one at 79 has a perfect MRI, especially him. Even just spotting his nunt on a MRI is bad news.
One in particular, you could ask the doctors.
No, they can't.
In fact, we have doctors traveling with us, but...
There's another big fucking tell. I think that's the bigger tell, quite frankly, than the MRI leak. We have doctors traveling with us. Now, the president always has a medical team with him. You know, like a trauma surgeon and, you know, that kind of stuff. But there's a big difference between, like, the standard kind of military level, like if something happens to the president, we have to be able to treat it within a certain range of ability all the time. And that's, you know, since the Cold War, we've had that. To doctors are traveling with us. Doctors. They have trauma surgeons. They have a medical staff, not doctors. Doctors manage your health in a more sort of like macro and broad sense. You know, that they deal with making sure your medications are taken on time, and you've got a treatment plan that is carried out over a period of time. And the fact that they've got them with him all the time, and he talks about it that way, is a tell.
I think they gave you a very conclusive. Nobody has ever given you reports like I gave you. And if I didn't think.
Also, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course they have. They just haven't needed to before. Nobody was like, oh shit. Can, you know, like with Biden as he got near the end, like people of his term, everybody was aware that he had, like, because he busted his ankle on the campaign trail. That's why he slipped going up the stairs or whatever. He's always had like a stiff back because he fucking bike rides. That's how he exercises. So like anybody who fucking Pelotons it, you're stiff the next day if you're really pushing it, especially if you're his age. So the idea that he's like sore if you went, they should have shown him on his Peloton more often. They would show him riding his bike, but he rode the Peloton like almost every day. Biden did. And so this idea that he was like, ouch, 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 you know, it's like my girl and I, when we come back from the gym, like this, I'm going to hurt later. This is going to happen. Like yesterday, I came back from the gym and I was like, I lay down on the couch and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to shampoo my hair tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. Like, you know, that's completely normal. So, but you think with like Clinton or even George H.W. Bush or George W. Bush, like George H.W. Bush, when he vomited on the Japanese prime minister, like there was a little more openness about the medical situation he was in. The last truly opaque president about their health was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan entered primary dementia in his second year of his first term. He was on track genetically and through lifestyle and all this stuff, but largely genetically, towards dementia and Alzheimer's as he aged. And being shot in 1981 shortened that time. It brought it, you know, it cuts, it's like they always used to, like, I think it was Dennis Leary used to say, like, smoking takes 10 years off your life, but it's the last year, so who cares? It doesn't. It takes 10 years out of the middle. It brings the last 10 years closer. It's like going from 30 directly to 50, right? That's what it does. The same thing happened to Ronald Reagan when he was shot. He had full-on dementia when he gave his speech in the the 92 RNC. And he was terrified he would start to ramble and never get back. He was aware of his own brain decay at that point. And so they kept, especially his last 4 years in office, they kept a really tight lid on that. And they managed him all day long. And Nancy played a part in that. We're seeing a replay of that with Trump.
It was going to be good. Either I would let you know negatively, I wouldn't run, I'd do something, but the doctor said some of the best reports for the age, some of the best reports they've ever seen.
Yeah. They're trying to keep you from panicking. Not even close. And by the way, there are no other, like your only comparison is Biden at the end of his term. Who else are they working on? This is the president's physicians. This is the president's doctors. What other 79-year-olds are they looking at? And also, again, 79-year-olds with the kind of schedule the president has. It's ridiculous. So anyways, so that obviously is a big part of this, and a bit of the thing. But he blurted out, everybody's making a big deal that he blurted out that there was an MRI scan. And I would argue the fact that he spoke openly about the fact that there are doctors traveling with him. Again, there's always a medical staff. No president talks about it. They're always there. As a matter of fact, they're kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's not even the president's purview. It's not within his sort of need to know. He's aware of it. It's obviously he's been briefed on it, but it's not something they review with you every day. But what he's seeing is he's seeing a doctor every day. That's the reality. This is the other thing too, is that MRIs are not just something you get. Now, I gotta say, you're hearing this a bunch. This is less of a big deal to me than the aspirin therapy bullshit. An MRI, if you could have, if they were free, and they just had them, and you could go over there and take all your, any metal stuff you have on you, make sure anybody around you removes anything magnetic, and you could just go into an MRI and get a body scan anytime you wanted to, and it would be a way of telling whether you had, early stages of just about anything or any kind of, if you could do an MRI and an AI scan of that at a clinic, which is, by the way, right around the corner, I'd say within the next 2 years, some variation of that, even if it's a high-level ultrasound with AI being able to look at it. But an MRI, at a president's level, you should be able to have one every 2 months so that you can manage the health of the leader of the world, blah, blah, blah. That's not surprising. For better or worse, I'm sure there are other world leaders who have one of these. It's one of those things where you expect when they raid fucking Saddam Hussein's castle that he had an MRI and a bunch of others, like Michael Jackson's house. Like, they would just have access to everything they wanted, right? So that you don't even have to be paranoid about it. You're like, shit, if I had access to this kind of stuff, I'd want to know all the time and just maximize my health, considering the schedule, considering the circumstance, considering the stress, considering age, all those kind of things. You would just want it, right? So the fact that he had an MRI at his age, the fact that I would expect him to have one every time. Just, shit, if everybody had Walter Reed level healthcare, you'd want to go in for one anytime you were, your knee was bothering you. Just scan my whole body again. Give me the results. I'll keep that. I don't know if is there a really bad impact to having, your body scanned with a giant magnet multiple times? Sort of like chemo, you don't want to have it unless you need it, that idea, but it's necessary if you do need it. I don't know, or x-rays. But anyways, you would do it, right? The bigger standout to me is this: he's on the bruising on his hand is from an aspirin regimen. Because you only are on, and at his age, the only reason they put you on an aspirin regimen is if you've already had a heart attack, or you've already had a stroke, or you are at constant, because of another physical malady, another physical ailment, in constant danger of having a stroke or a heart attack. Picture of health. Yeah, the picture's from a Stephen King novel. Yeah. Right? I've never had an MRI either. But again, your last MRI was a month ago and was clear after my stroke. Oh, smarty pants, that's great news. See, and that makes sense. And I think it points to the fact that Trump has clearly had a stroke. Not just a heart attack, which I'm sure he's had small, I don't think, because he's surrounded by people at all times and because he's monitored and all that kind of stuff, I don't think he's had nobody's had to do CPR on him. But he started to have oh shit. And then they went, you're having a mild heart attack, we'll treat it, blah, 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 because they're right on top of it. But a stroke, for sure. You can tell by the way he's thinking, or not thinking. You can tell by the way his brain works or doesn't work. Seen here, grabbing him by the arches. I call the bigger one my fourth wife. I like the bigger one. They 3D printed these, so they gave him something to play with. They're throwing him trinkets, by the way. That's what I think the people I think the whole Epstein ballroom thing is, about them keeping him kind of, oh God, sorry, 1 second. Damn. Nunt warning. That's brutal. Holy hell. Like, it's, I mean, that's a bad angle for anybody, but shit. That is not the picture of health. Sorry. He looks like a televangelist right before he keels over. So anyways, they're just retyping here what he said about, you know, and we'll get to this one in a second. Yes. And then he kept saying it was perfect. Oof. No, dude. It was not perfect. And the other thing too is perfect could simply mean perfect could simply mean we think you'll be alive in 3 years. Not happy and healthy, but for now, this is perfect. But there's definitely a cascading effect that's happening. This plane is coming in for a landing. Let's see this. White House he told reporters Monday morning on April that doctors had offered him, quote, them a very conclusive report of the exam. I got an MRI. It was perfect. I gave you the full results. We had an MRI in the machine, you know, the whole thing. It was perfect. That's the part we saw with the recording of it. No, it was not. And let's see if and then there was the other one where he was like talking about how
Steve Bannon said in a recent interview
that the idea that he's going to do a third term. Can I just, for the record, there is no fucking way. No way. He'll be lucky if he makes it physically to the end of his term. Very lucky. It will require the highest, most profound medical supervision and support that any human being has ever gotten. Now, don't get me wrong. There are technologies and medical interventions that are currently here but awaiting human trials and on the horizon that are probably going to reverse aging for a lot of people 20, 30 years. Within the next 5 years. There was even let's see. This is what Xi Jinping was saying to Vladimir Putin, what he was talking about. Let's see. Age versal discovery. Let's call it that. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so they have a specific kind of stem cell that reversed aging in mice tended let's see, like, let me get it to open up. There we go. Reversed aging in mice. They have moved on to primate studies, and it works equally as well, if not better. They are a specific form, SRCs, these progenitor, senescent resistant mesenchymal progenitor cells, these SRCs. These things are, senescence has to do with the sort of the breakdown and reuptake of them, that they don't get just once you don't need it anymore. Stem cells, because your genetics are saying you're older, and so you don't use them as much. They kind of expel them, and through senescence. And so that I'm dumbing this down, but trust, this is the borderline. The best way to explain it is that it sheds them instead of uses them to rebuild the tissue. And the senescent resistant cells don't get shed; they get used, and so you can inject them into someone's organs if they have a failing heart or kidneys or lungs or something like that, and those cells will grow into fresher, newer cells and rejuvenate the cells around them, because they will be the dominant cell in the lung. And let's say you've got your kidneys are a better example, because a lot of my dad's having kidney issues or whatever. They would inject it into your kidneys. The those cells would be younger cells. They would basically rebuild your kidney by being the dominant cell because they'd be the healthiest and with the longest life. And so your body would just kind of replace the cells as they grew, as they shed from the kidney you have, the one that sort of grows in its place, because you change every cell in your body every 7 years, which is why the movie Time Cop doesn't work. I wish it did. But that's what they're working on. They're using macaques right now. It's a 44. This is earlier. I think this is an older one. Yeah. Conducted a 44-week experiment on these macaques. They got, every 2 weeks, they got injections with these things, and it reversed their aging. This is the lipid buildup in their skeletal muscle. This is the control group on the left. This is the group that got the treatment on the right. Those cells are younger. So, believe me, at some point, as Trump starts to fall apart, and our dear friend Tara Dublin, who does indeed rock, is joining us right now in a second. I'll bring her in. They're going to start experimenting on Trump. Trump will be the first guinea pig president for this stuff. The problem is his brain breakdown is not going to be reversible the same way. You might be able to keep his heart, lungs, his liver, his kidney. You might even be able to refresh some of his joints so he can continue to play golf. But his brain fade is here to stay, because some of it is biological, and a lot of it is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And he's rewriting synapses in his brain over and over and over again that are just going to make him more. He's going to be like schizoform after a while. He's going to be so and this is why we'll talk about this one day very soon. Remind me to do an hour-long special on anti-aging and the psychological industry that's going to be necessary once that happens, because it's a good thing. Death is once it becomes unnecessary is another thing. And health, if you can stave off health problems for people for as long as possible, so you can extend their healthful years as long as possible, that's a good thing. Unless you're a big fan of cancer. But what happens if you extend someone's life to the age where they're 100 or 120 and then 100 to 150 or 180, psychology and mental health become the most important life sciences, because dealing with think of all the stuff you've gone through with life and then understand that there will be more of that, both good and bad, the challenges and the beauty, and processing that can be a lot. And that's where I'm saying that they can rejuvenate Trump's internal organs all you want, but he's already in his own, mental collapse trap. So let me bring in our dear friend Tara Dublin, who does indeed rock. But when I do, I want to bring her in with her new theme song, because she hasn't had a chance to have it played when she came in. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen, Tara Dublin.
Goodbye, Portland, you twisted now. Where's the harbor? Where's the gal? Goodbye, Portland. You make
Is that my big surprise? Is that the surprise that I heard tell about? I have influence music now.
Yep.
That's my surprise.
Yep.
This is the big surprise that Andrea texted me about this morning.
It's one,
whatever it was.
Well, yeah. I mean, it should be a surprise that the show's awesome all the time. But I specifically made.
That's expected.
Yeah, I know. People take it for granted, as they should. By the way, you know what? I like being taken for granted. I insist on it. You know why? Because that means you could trust. Trust and being taken for granted are kissing cousins.
I wanna take you for granted.
That's right. Yeah.
I wanna push you way around, and I will. Do you know that there are people who believed that song was written for the Barbie movie? And those people are very young people,
dear.
And they did not know. They don't know Matchbox 20, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I'm going to lean towards good.
I mean, in Dumb and Dumber, you know, they've got the monkeys. They were a big influence on the Beatles. Like that happens every generation, and that generational
Hi,
joke.
everybody.
Uh,
Hi, everybody. By the way, I did get the Wordle solution today, and I got it in 2. Thank you so much.
oh, it's
I'm
brutal.
wicked smart. By the way, also, I was listening to you while I was getting
Mhm.
ready, and I didn't get a chance to participate in the horror movie conversation.
Yeah,
And I would like to
sure.
briefly participate. Briefly. So, as a teenager, I enjoyed the scary movies, as you were talking about, like, you know, all of that working
Mm-hmm.
through shit and watching a lot of girls get hacked to death
Mm-hmm.
by big scary men, which
Mm-hmm.
is a great metaphor for women's lives from birth to death. Hooray. And so when you were talking about like learning to cope through horror films, I think there's a lot of truth to that
Mm-hmm.
because it's a problem solving
Mm-hmm.
situation, right? Because everyone's like, don't go up the stairs, you
Right.
know, like that shit, right? Right. Don't go in the basement. Um,
It's one of the ways you
and
treat.
so
It's one of the ways you teach. And I know people get this shit all backwards, like Disney princess movies. Disney princess movies are not for girls. They're for boys. They're to teach you to treat women with respect and reverence, to pedestal
you
the
think
women
they
in your
get it.
life. Nope, women think it's about the dresses that they wear and the slipper and all that kind of stuff. It's so that men don't turn into monsters. We're not worried by and large about women turning into monsters. Almost
Not
all
really.
pop culture is to teach women how to escape from men who have turned into monsters and teach the other men around them, the vast majority, thank you very much, to be anti-monster and to protect the women around them when necessary. That's what it's been about.
Correct.
Whether you think it's necessary
Correct.
or not, whether you want to go like I could kick anybody's ass and tell your story all they gonna, doesn't matter. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
That's what it's
Yeah.
always been for. Just
Beauty and the Beast.
right, yeah.
Anyway, but then when I became a mother, the whole world is terrifying and wants to kill you and your baby.
Yeah.
Rosemary's Baby is like hits so different when you are pregnant. Watch
Mhm.
that when you're pregnant. You're
Right.
just like, everybody wants my baby and wants to kill me. And
Mhm.
then the whole world is so scary. You see the world as one giant death trap, and scary movies became not a thing for
Mhm.
me for a while. I didn't want to watch them. I still have issues if there's something that that I'm watching where a child is hurt
Mhm.
or scared or you know, anything bad, because it's not that I can't suspend my disbelief while watching a movie. It's, I think what I end up doing is I think about the parents of the child actor putting that child actor in a traumatic situation
Mhm.
and trying to explain to like a 4-year-old, you're pretending to be scared, but
Mhm.
also that's really fucking scary, like that shit. But anyway, as an adult, and I've always been a huge Stephen King
Mhm.
aficionado for
Right.
a very long time, and I have right here on my desk. This
Mhm.
is a postcard I received from Stephen King in 1985 because I wrote to him.
Right.
I was doing a paper about him and H.P. Lovecraft, comparing them. And back in the day of 1985, kids, you had to, if you wanted to write to a
Mhm.
famous person, you wrote to them through their publisher, is what I did,
Right.
and waited, because you write like in a handwritten. And then I got like a whole packet of information, which
Mhm.
he physically typed at the bottom. Hope this isn't too late, and good luck on your term paper. Hope you get an A. And then the next day I got that postcard because I had asked about the Dark Tower, because at that time it was out of print. And he said, you could reach out to these people, but don't pay more than $50. And that's
Mhm.
been on my desk every day since May 31st, 1985, or it was on my wall. It was somewhere. Inspo, total inspo. I love Salem's Lot. That's my favorite Stephen King book, and The Stand. Those are my
Mhm.
favorites. I don't love any of the adaptations thereof. And I would love it if only Mike Flanagan was allowed to adapt Stephen King properties from forever. Forever. Because if you've seen any Mike Flanagan adaptation of any Stephen King, it is far superior to all other Stephen King adaptations. If you've seen The Life of Chuck, it's very good. But my personal favorite horror movie now,
Mhm.
in my life, my
Mhm.
whole life, as I look back on everything, it is the director's cut 3-hour version of Doctor Sleep, which is a sequel to The Shining.
Right.
And if you've never read, first you need to read it. You need to read Doctor Sleep. It's so excellent. It's
Well, the same
so
thing with the
excellent.
original Shining. Like, read the book. I
Yes,
remember reading The
it's
Shining
so good and
when I
so
first
different,
read
right?
it. When I first read it, I was terrified to turn the next page. That was the first time I'd ever experienced that. We're like, fuck, fuck. Like,
And Pet Sematary. The
yeah.
book Pet Sematary is fucking terrifying,
Mm-hmm.
and the movies are ridiculous. But anyway, Doctor Sleep is one of those adaptations where it's so good
Mm-hmm.
that 3 hours goes by like that, and the 2.5 hour version is great, but not
Mm-hmm.
as satisfying as the 3 hour adaptation, and the 2.5 hour one is back on streaming. The 3 hour one you can only like purchase on Amazon right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good at like every aspect of it, and it's a very difficult book to adapt, which is also true of The Shining, because while The Shining as the movie itself, which I think most people who love Stephen King know that Stephen King doesn't love the movie of The Shining
Right.
because they changed so much. And my biggest issue with the movie of The Shining, like it's visually stunning and it's psychological horror and it's beautiful, and they shot it here in Oregon at
Mm-hmm.
up in up in the mountains, and that's a real place, and you can
Mm-hmm.
go there, and they have all
Oh, I'm
Shining toys,
planning on it.
whatever.
Yeah, once my
I know
like
young.
when my kid's like 17, I think we're gonna go
Yeah,
stay
no,
there
that'll be
for
a great.
Halloween week. I'm sure it's packed.
Oh, yeah, and then there's also in Portland now, there's a bar called The Hallway, and it's a Shining-themed bar, a
Oh
whole
shit.
bar, and you can do karaoke there because The Shining's not scary enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what Doctor Sleep my biggest issue with the movie of The Shining, if you've read, especially if you've read the book, first of all, they changed it from a topiary to a
Mm-hmm.
maze because he wanted to film it. Kubrick wanted to play with his steady cam, and that's why they
Well,
built a maze instead.
also the idea that they would be able to have like a hedge bunny and a hedge, I forget, wolf or whatever, come
Bear.
alive
Well,
and and
right, that would
attack
might have
anybody.
looked silly.
They couldn't have done it
Might have
back
looked
then
silly.
at all. It was just not
No.
possible unless it was going to be like claymation or some shit like that, and there was
Right.
no way to make it without it looking stupid. So it was actually a really good
Ridiculous.
solution. I happen to think too
Yeah.
that was one of the failures of the book. That part of it, the scariest part, was when he's in the old like piece of pipe, like the tubing in the playground, and like I talked about
Yeah.
this when I was a kid, like at Peaks Mill in Kentucky, we'd have like a swing and we'd have a merry-go-round and shit like that, but they'd bring over 3 piles of dirt and just you play King of the Hill, just push each other off a pile of
Right.
dirt. The other thing they would give you is unused sewer pipe. They bring over like 3 rolls of sewer pipe, bury it halfway in the ground, so now you have a tunnel and you can climb on top of it, but it's just a piece of leftover fucking sewer pipe. And he's playing in that in the movie, and the snow falls and traps him inside it, and he's trying to dig his way out, and behind him in the tunnel down like 15 feet away, he hears the scritching of a child's bony fingers that's tried to
So
claw its way out
creepy.
behind him. That's way scarier than a giant bunny made out of shrubbery.
For
A
sure.
shrubbery!
For sure. A shrubbery.
Right.
And then you have to chop down the tallest tree with a herring.
Oh,
Anyway, and they also
come
did
on.
a TV
Oh,
movie
please.
version. They did a TV movie version of it where Steven Weber played Jack, and they did attempt the topiary thing, which was still weird because it was like in the 90s. But
it was the
for
early
me,
2000s,
watching
I think, but it was
early 2000s,
it was more
late
recent
90s,
than
early
that.
2000s.
Yeah.
But it's a more faithful adaptation of the book, which the conceit is, of course, that the hotel possesses Jack Torrance, and that's why he, does what he does, and why the previous caretaker slaughtered his wife and twin daughters, and that's all of that. The problem is when you watch the movie, you already think Jack Nicholson is crazy. It doesn't seem like a descent into madness. He seems mad from the beginning. When he's doing his interview, even, he seems a little off, right? You're like,
They'll love it.
no. It's fucking Jack Nicholson.
Right.
So
He looks
you
crazy
cast
anyways.
Jack
Right.
Nicholson fresh off, and I mean the book came out in what, 79 or 80, so we're talking early 80s Jack Nicholson, not that far away from his other previous cuckoo banana is crazy that Jack Nicholson rolls. So if they had cast a more milquetoast sort of actor, someone who didn't have as much of a history of being cuckoo or wild or whatever, if they had cast someone more like Steven Weber in the movie, it might have been more believable. that he's descending into madness because he looks like a regular guy who wears chinos, but Jack Nicholson looks like a guy who will fucking stay up for 4 days and then murder you from the outset.
In defense of that, there is a backstory of that when he drinks, he's already got a temper. He dislocated his kid's arm. She smokes a lot to cover what he's like. So the idea is that he's not just nuts before he gets there, and it's not just the place. And
they have a history.
It might have nothing to do, depending on what you believe. If she starts drinking with him, is the idea is that they both start losing their mind, and the kid's the only sober person in the building, and that's why he's the hero of the story or whatever. But the whole backstory, where his kid's like, a couple of extra foot-pounds per second, right?
A momentary loss of muscular coordination.
Right. That was my favorite part, like that snap. And that was more a description of his snap than what he did to the kid. Like what happened to
And when she's talking about it, she's like, it's the kind of thing you do a million times with a child, and pulled his arm and it just popped out of the socket. And the first time you see him really snap in the movie, like there's that weird part where he's looking out the window while they're playing, but then when he's typing and he's like, when you know I'm in here, when you hear me typing, what the fuck I'm doing in here, you're like, okay, here we go. But also you're waiting for that already because he's Jack Nicholson. So I would say like,
the music is telling you. The music is telling you. There's fucking cello music from the first ride up the mountain. It's like, well, so you have should all eat of that your breakfast. You mean they ate each other up? Yep. Yep. Right. Like, and, like the movie is great because it is about the inevitable, and that's why it does. That's why there's no traditional turn in it. Is that that this family, this guy, this circumstance, because of either psychic, like the narrowing of this psychic moment where they're just brought to experience this. This is going to happen, whether it happens in their apartment or at this crazy hotel. It doesn't matter. The fates are aligning because this guy was always there. So there is he's not going to grow, and my mom took me to see this movie when I was, it came out in 78, I was 8 years old. Because I looked
I think it came out in 81. Like 81.
See. Yeah, because
the book came out in 80, or it came out in the movie came out in 80, and the book came out in 79.
Because that's why she brought me. Because I looked just like him. I looked like Danny when I was that kid. Yeah, so and she was like, "He's
terrifying." Was
it wasn't terrifying at all because I was watching it from the kid's perspective, and I'm like, he's got these powers. He's aware more than anyone else, and he's the survivor. He's in the book. He reads about how Native Americans used to travel in straight lines, and then they would appear to disappear by stopping, backing up, and hiding in a tree line. And that's where he learns that trick, is from the books he's reading in the library. And the two little girls tell him basically to read the books because that was part of their plan.
But that's not in the movie.
No.
And so
there's no room for it. Right.
No.
So, but again, a movie about inevitability, which in and of itself is effectively what, every walking down the steps scene in a horror film is about. Like it is, whether it's 20 seconds or 2 hours, it's you are about to meet your fate. How will you respond? Are you going to survive this meeting of this meeting the tortured monster, or are you going to get consumed by it? Whatever that is, whether it's Jimmy, where'd you guys go? This isn't funny. Like whatever that moment is.
Dad, is that you?
That's
I hate that one.
That's the Shining compressed into 40 seconds or whenever that person gets stabbed or whatever. And when you stretch it out, that's when you get like a psychological thriller aspect to it. Whether it's hunting Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs to the point where you're trapped alone in a basement. He's got night vision goggles and you can't see. Oh my God,
that scene.
Right.
Yeah. And Dr. Sleep delivers a lot of psychological stuff because so much of it is Danny as an adult trying to suppress his shine, but can't. It always will be part of him. And what he sees and what he experiences and how he tries to dull it with drugs and alcohol and what happens to him and how he tries to redeem himself. And just when like he's trying to just live a regular life, then he is contacted by this little girl who has shining beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are like these energy vampires who travel around the country eating the shine of children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, bah! And
Yeah.
so, and basically every Stephen King book, once he became a parent, was about his biggest fear, which is losing a child, which he also has said repeatedly in interviews, like, because people would ask him, what scares you?
Mm-hmm.
And he would say, well, going in to wake up one of my children for school and finding them dead. That's my biggest fear. And so that's why so many children in his books repeatedly, like It and The Shining, and he has always there are children in peril. I mean, in Salem's Lot, what's the scariest scene in Salem's Lot for kids? It's when Ralphie is outside the window, or Danny's outside the window. Let me in. That shit's fucking scary for kids. And so, but you look now, and that adaptation of Salem's Lot that Lance Kerwin was in with David Soul, like, it's kitschy 70s and Gen X touchstone moment. But if you read the book Salem's Lot, which I always encourage people to do, because it's wonderfully written, and it's like Our Town but with vampires, is basically what Stephen King wrote.
Right.
And what makes Stephen King's books scary as well is that he sets them in very realistic places. He sets them in a small town. He sets them in a hotel. He sets them in town, just in normal. Look at what he's doing, like the Welcome to Derry and everything with It. It's Castle Rock, these haunted towns that could be Yorktown. And so that's what makes them so visceral and what makes people connect to them. But with Dr. Sleep, it's a multi-level thing, because like children are hurt and there's psychic stuff, but then there's also what Mike Flanagan does with that movie in recreating all of those scenes from The Overlook, and recreating like the actress he casts as Wendy, the little boy he cast as Danny. He uses a lot of the same actors over and over again, but the actor that he casts as Dick, like all of it is just like, you remember how you felt when you watched The Shining the first time, and it's so evocative. And one of the scenes that I love, and what you miss if you don't watch the director's cut, and then we'll get to politics in a second, but there is an extended scene in the director's cut when and I don't want to spoil it, but it is between Henry Thomas and Ewan McGregor, and it goes on, and you don't even feel time passing. It's so perfectly executed in a moment that so well if you've watched the movie The Shining, and if you know the story, but the relationship between Danny and his father's relationship to the hotel. And so all of it comes full circle. And then there's Rebecca Ferguson, who's such an amazing actor, and she drives this story, and she's it's just everything about it is perfect. And I could watch it every week probably. And there was this one time, I don't know, 2BN323 says there has never been a Barlow as scary as the original. See, that's the point. The point is that Barlow wasn't supposed to look like that. That's a scary effect for the TV audience or whatever, for people who haven't read Salem's Lot. But what makes Barlow so scary is that he looks like a regular person. Like, he's tall and he's handsome and he has like kind of a foreign accent, but he's charming.
Well, like the Antichrist would be. That's why we call Trump the Temu Antichrist, because he does not have
right. But like Dracula, in the same way Dracula could seduce women in a sexy way, like the Frank Langella Dracula was very sexy in 1979. Barlow in the book is described as someone who's just charming. He's just charming. He'll walk up to someone and strike up a conversation and then hypnotize them. But he looks like a regular person. He doesn't look like Nosferatu.
Right.
And for Stephen King, the scariest thing is what happens in the regular day-to-day. Not someone who travels to Transylvania to a castle. Yeah, that's scary. But it is scarier when your daily, normal, everyday life is interrupted by the monsters instead of... And so that's what makes life scary for parents. What monster is going to come in and hurt my child? And that it plays and that's what his later books do, is they tap into, they're focused on children, but they tap into the parental fear of what can happen to a child. And so, George Hamilton in Love at First Bite. That was a funny Dracula.
Yeah.
Sort of funny, but it hasn't aged well.
I have So I really appreciate it. First of all, it's I love this conversation, by the way, and I can't wait till Trump is a thing in the past so we can discuss these things on the
We
regular.
just talk
and
about movies and music and
yeah, go back to
books and who
like
cares.
yeah.
I will not watch, by the way, just 1 second in the chat. The Exorcist fucking traumatized me at the age of 15.
Yeah, it didn't do anything to me.
I watched
I
I
remember
watched it alone, which was stupid. I watched it while I was babysitting, which is dumb. And then the other dumb thing that I did was tell my mother I was going to watch it. And so she was at home watching it on HBO while I was babysitting watching it on HBO. And every time something scary happened, she would call and the phone on the wall would ring like, and that was fucking scarier. That made The Exorcist scarier for me because she was like, I don't think you should be watching this. And I'm like, leave me alone. But the thing that was the scariest for me is that the people I was babysitting for had a sliding glass door to the patio, but they didn't have a curtain over it. And I kept seeing the reflection of the devil face in the window of the door. And that's it. And it doesn't come back as much now because it's been decades since I've seen it. But I used to have really bad stress dreams. And when I would have stress dreams, I would dream about Linda Blair or sharks. And so, but Linda Blair in your dreams is not what you want to see. You don't want to see that.
When I met Linda Blair, she was dating Murray Langstrom, the unknown comic. So I have a totally different picture of who she is. That's true. They used to,
That's great though. I love that.
They were a couple, which is just fantastic. So there's a scary. Interestingly enough, in The Shining, the conversation in the bathroom between Delbert Grady and Jack, and where he said, they use the N-word so casually. I remember that was the first time I can remember laughing in a scene and being terrified at the same time, like having being yanked out of that when he's like an N-word and he goes. An N-word cook. And then he goes, cook. An N-word? Like that, like when he does like, and he's saying it like, are you saying what I think you're saying? Like, and it was so odd and funny, especially Jack Nicholson, the way he said it, like he'd been hit in the head with a hammer, was great because you're like, he's vacillating in and out of being drunk and not. And they did like 50 takes. So like any version of this, could have been used. And so he could, variations of the performance, he could make the characters seem schizo. That, and the other thing, of course, is that he, like Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson were doing so much fucking blow on that movie. She was a fucking like skeleton. My first project ever, I worked with her. She was lovely, poor thing. Like her her mental illness over time. I'm like, wonder how much of that was jump started during the 70s and the stuff that she was doing, whether in that or in Annie Hall, doing that much blow and being that skinny. But she was so terrified. She was under the impression that because of Dario Argento and other horror people, there was this thing about Cannibal Holocaust that they'd used a real dead body, and that Kubrick was going to go a step further. And so she was under the impression, because she was so blitzed out of her mind, that he was going to kill her and film it. And and that the axe coming through the door, she believed was Stanley. And there's this idea, that they, the way they shoot it with the camera, boom, like that is so, like, it's Fincher's entire career in that one camera. Like, you can tell everything David Fincher did in everything from Fight Club to fucking Mindhunter, anything that he did, Panic Room, is based on the recreating that Jack pulling it back and hitting the door and the camera stopping exactly at that moment. The camera as God, right? But I would argue that there are movies where, and this is a wonderfully silly example. So this is a movie called District B13, B30. And this is French parkour movie. It's like an action movie. These two dudes, these two dudes are parkour guys in France. They're both fighters. The stunts in it are fucking amazing. But this girl is this guy's sister. And he's a cop. And in the beginning, he takes a bunch of a bad guy's drugs, and he destroys them in this area, District B13, which is this isolated area outside of Paris, where they've trapped basically all the bad guys, where they built a wall, almost like the Gaza wall, outside this area because it just got so bad. There's a scene in it where he gets his, they've got his sister, and they're holding her hostage, which again goes to that point of like, they've got her, and how do you get her? And this cop, the other guy, this guy helps him go get her. And then this guy has to go, the cop has to go the other way. This guy takes her to a police station. They go, all right, we'll take care of her. Don't worry about it. You know, we've technically got to arrest you, but it'll all work out. They lock him, they cuff him. And then they take him to a jail cell. They uncuff him, they close the jail cell. And then the guy that kidnapped his sister walks into the station. And it's abundantly clear that everybody there works for him. And now he's in a cage, and his sister's out there with this dude. And
with the bad guys.
Yeah. And the scene where they take her away is one of the most like riveting, terrifying, heartbreaking, enraging scenes. It's just great. And the whole movie's worth it, even if you don't like action movies, just for that part of it. To the point where the cop, spoiler alert, but the cop who's like the sergeant comes over and goes, what am I supposed to do? You know, the guy runs the area. There's nothing I can do. And he goes, you don't know what you can do? And the guy, I'll tell you what you can do. And the guy leans forward. He reaches through the bars, grabs the guy's head, pulls him through, and then jumps up and comes knee down on the dude's head for letting his sister.
I bet that's a very satisfying moment for the viewer.
It is. But then he goes to jail, and 2 years pass, and they've got his sister this whole time.
Oh, man.
It's
all right.
Yeah. And so that's even more like, it ends with that satisfying moment, but then it goes like 2 years later or whatever. And you're like, oh, fuck. Like, right? Just like that goes to that whole, like, that having a responsibility for someone, or feeling you do, and having no ability to respond. Right? That terrifying thing.
Yep.
So let's. So we got a half hour left. Let's talk politics. So speaking of which, our ability to respond, like voting and giving a shit and understanding that we're in an age of politics and not social circle jerks, the way some people want to turn it into these days. Couple of things. While Trump is talking, he's in Asia, by the way, talking like he's had his head in a microwave. I don't know if you saw.
Not new. I haven't seen anything because I don't like to look at him. So
okay, yeah. So
I'm still devastated by the White House thing. So I'm still getting over that part of the White House destruction thing that the Republicans aren't commenting on. The only thing. What bothers me about it is, first of all, that he did it without permits or permission, and no one's holding him accountable, and it feels like a violation.
He doesn't. No, that's the thing. That's up to us. That's on us. That's we've operated like people like that. There will be that. This is why we have all the rules we have. We might have started off with thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. But now we have varying degrees. You only go to jail for these, and that's a fine, and whatever. There's a reason why it bifurcates out, because somebody over the time finds some wiggle room, gets around it, and says, wait a minute, it says thou shalt not kill, but if I hadn't killed him, he would have killed me. Okay, good point. And then we got to rewrite the law. And the same thing is true of we didn't think we needed a rule to go, this is the people's house, you're a temp. You don't get to fucking knock the whole fucking thing down unless it's for national security reasons, which is like what Truman did when he built the bunker underneath it, which Trump loves to go and hide in anytime there's a protest at the gates. And again, this National Guard on the streets has more to do with his fear of a protest crowd organically occurring, like one of the marches that happens in other states happening in D.C. right out front of him, because it terrifies him.
Which
and if it
should be every day.
Right, but that's why they aren't. They're not giving permits. And so if they did one organically, the National Guard would quell it or push it down, he would, the idea is that he would try to trigger the Insurrection Act so people know not to do it there because they don't want violence. It's really just a protest. And if they will use any excuse. But Trump, if he saw a crowd as big as the ones that happened in Chicago or Los Angeles or anywhere else, he'd go and fucking hide in the basement again. And he knows it. So they're trying to create a buffer zone around downtown Washington, like the capital area, just to make him feel safe.
And they're upgrading the bunker, said somebody in the chat.
Of the kingdom.
No.
Like the bunker itself is relatively the same. They don't need to.
None of this should be happening is the point, though. Like, and my biggest, we can argue what's worse and what's not. What I wanted to know about this that I haven't seen anybody ask Caroline about, because she said that his only priority is this fucking ballroom right now. Did anybody go through the entire East Wing and remove all of the artifacts and log them and pack them away for the future? Or did he just bulldoze the shit out of the place without preserving 1 ounce of American history? We don't know. We don't know what he did. We don't know. That's
right.
Years like all the first ladies and all the what they did and everything Eleanor Roosevelt did and subsequent first ladies and all of that history in the East Wing is gone. We don't know if anybody logged any of those artifacts and packed them away somewhere or sent them to the National Archives. We don't know because no one's asking those questions.
Right.
I am, but who's going to answer me? I don't have a network. I don't have a job. No one believes what I say or wants to answer my questions. But no one in the room is going to ask her that question. And so this, and we've talked about this, like my biggest issue with all of this happening at all was their ability to control information and the way that they put it out there and the way that people aren't getting up in arms about things.
Here's the thing. I'm all about like logging these things. Like this will have to be remedied later because there is currently, this is outside of what I would call our locus of control. It is, there's no law against it. So technically he could bulldoze the whole fucking place and build a gold palace if he wanted to legally, because we've never needed that rule before. Now we know we need the rule. And if he does that, then we will take all the rubble that they go and bury someplace else and rebuild the thing from fucking scratch at the cost of the taxpayers of $1.5 billion or some shit like that, and reinforce it and move a fucking tunnel to the Pentagon and all the things they've wanted to do to the structure itself for its own safety and security forever. We'll do all that stuff then after he's long gone. It's gonna, things will change over time anyways, and they do. But in the meantime, Yes. In the meantime, again, this is the Epstein ballroom is a distraction from the Epstein files, and he's running,
and the Epstein shut down.
Yes, and they are running him fucking ragged with this Operation Look Busy shit because he's hoping by stacking all these alleged peace deals and that shit where he get like I've solved world peace. Why are you coming after me for this whole? I spent 25 years with this pedophile and I wouldn't have even been on anybody's radar if this dude and his his buddies hadn't backed me. You would, right? I wouldn't have gotten to the part of becoming the guy on The Apprentice if Putin via these other people and Epstein's substructure hadn't cradled me and protected me from my own shitty bankruptcies. I'd be another example of a New York second or third generation failed billionaire. And nothing special. And so why are you bugging me with this? I solved world peace, which is just fucking bullshit. Here, I want to show you a piece of something real quick. So this is him at that ASEAN summit.
Summit here in beautiful Kuala Lumpur. As you know, this has been an incredibly successful day for Malaysia. Great honor to be here. I promised I'd be here when the Prime Minister helped us so beautifully with our peace treaty among two very friendly countries, I think we can say right now.
No.
And here I am, and it's really something to see what you've done.
I kind of think he means Pakistan and India right then, which are not.
He doesn't know where he is.
No, and also
he does not know where he is.
There's still a dispute over Kashmir. That's not going away. They're not friendly now. As a matter of fact, the only reason there aren't more of these dust-ups happening is because Pakistan has decided that taking a chunk of Afghanistan is more strategically valuable right now than Kashmir, because if they usurp certain areas around Afghanistan, with it will come the Muslim tribes there that will fight against India just in a Muslim versus Hindu fight, even if they don't agree with what the Pakistani government wants to do. They'll just go, oh, okay.
He doesn't understand that.
No.
He doesn't understand how any of it works. And he probably didn't sleep the whole flight from DC to there. And he's jet lagged and on Adderall. And also he's so fucking dying, right? And he's not healthy. And when will his veins win this battle? How many flights does he have to take? Think about how pressurized that cabin must be on Air Force One.
Right. Yeah.
Imagine with the amount of flying around that he does, his veins should have won that contest already.
I wouldn't doubt that they have him in a hyperbaric chamber, like an oxygen chamber, while he's flying, just to protect him from.
That's his med bed. That's the med bed that everyone thinks exists.
Yeah.
Probably.
For the United States and for all nations across this magnificent region.
Also, he's got the slobbery lateral lisp. That's that's the Adderall that doesn't, when it's not working. So when Adderall starts to, like, when it's not working in your brain, it like overcompensates in other areas, and you get this kind of like lateral lisp thing. That's when you're too gacked out or too tired for it to work. Yeah. Right.
Or his dentures could be slipping. Also,
no,
we've seen that.
It's not dentures. He gets new teeth every 18 months or some shit like that. And
like a shark.
Yeah, they replace his veneers every 18 months.
So gross. Everything about him is disgusting.
Yeah.
And
they're all watching and they're seeing what's taking place. Thank you very much. It's a great honor.
How does anybody look at him and think he's
Today,
a leader?
the Prime Minister and I signed a major trade deal between the United States and Malaysia, and together we took part in the signing of a historic peace agreement ending the hostilities between Cambodia and Thailand. We're calling it the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords. Once again, want to congratulate Prime Minister Hun Manet.
I got to tell you, there's a special place in my heart.
Acetaminophen.
Right. Yeah. There's a special place in my heart for him trying to pronounce foreign names or listen to reporters with accents. That whole...
That's adorable.
So what? She's saying house. She said house. 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 It's house. Listen to the context of the rest of the fucking... You didn't get the rest of it either. Okay.
By the way, Joe Biden made a speech yesterday. A really good one. Sounded fully coherent. He says it's not time to give up.
Yeah.
It's like don't get disappointed. You know, like don't get discouraged, get mad, keep fighting is basically what Joe Biden said. Joe Biden, who just completed a course of radiation treatment for his stage 4 pancreatic cancer, is still more spry and verbally there than Trump is right now. And you do a side-by-side of the mush mouth that you just showed us and the Joe Biden speech where he's like still fired up and believes in America and is the president we remember him to be. Like, show that to
people. Right, here you go. Here you go. Hold on. Here you go.
America.
Look at this guy.
On our respect for the institutions that govern and guarantee a free society. It depends on a presidency with limited powers. It depends on a functioning Congress. It depends on autonomous judiciary. It depends on a free...
By the way, can you imagine Trump saying autonomous judiciary?
Dude, I was literally going to say the same exact thing. He doesn't know what autonomous judiciary even means, let alone...
That Trump would...
I love Joe Biden so much.
Yeah.
I love
free health care for illegal...
look. Like, can you imagine him trying to just...
Action replays in magnified fortune.
Autonomous judiciary. Like, yeah.
I miss him every day, all day.
Institutions reflect the timeless words. We hold these truths to be self-evident. And we, the people. Ongoing debates about the power and the exercise of power.
Quote.
Debates about whether we lead by the example of our power or the power of our example.
I love him
we show
so
the courage
much.
to stand up to the abuse of power, or we're going to yield to it. We face these existential
We're
questions
supposed to
again
have a
today.
president who loves America and
Right.
loves Americans.
Right.
That's what we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
Now, good, bad, or indifferent, your history of Democratic presidents shows a history of devotion to the job, putting country ahead of party, putting country ahead of own personal gain. Jimmy Carter had to sell off his peanut farm. All the things that Democratic presidents have done to improve this country, to make Americans' lives better, are right there in that clip. He is the embodiment of what Democratic presidents do. They give you hope, they give you support, and they don't take anything away. They provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. It's right there in the, and no Republican does that. And what makes me very angry in this moment that we are living in right now is that we didn't have to have this, because Democrats should have fought harder last November. And don't get me started on that, because it would have looked bad. I think it would have looked a lot better than what the White House looks like right now.
Yeah.
The other thing that makes me angry out here in the hinterland of what we do is that not enough of the truth gets to the general public. I don't know how to reach the general public because I don't know where they get their news from, and I don't know how people process information anymore. And I find this in an example in my own life. My mother lives in New York City. My stepfather is a Republican who refuses to vote for Democrats. My mother is a lifelong Democrat. I told my mother not to vote for Eric Adams, and she didn't listen to me. And so this time around, I'm trying to get her to listen to me about Mamdani. She has absorbed too much of my stepfather's like residual xenophobia. She cannot comprehend that there's not truth about him going out there in the world. And she thinks he's an anti-Semite who hates Israel. And I'm like, no, that's not it at all. And she is still adamant because she remembers Mario Cuomo as someone who did good for the state and for the city. And she's voting by default for the name. And I keep telling her, Andrew Cuomo is not the guy. You don't want a rapist for your mayor. You don't want that. You do not want that. And what I ask you to do is what Joe Biden asks, is that you need to plant trees that you know you're not going to sit under. That's democracy.
Right.
That is what we do. That's our votes, right? And so I say to my mother, plant a tree for your granddaughter who's living in New York City right now. That's what we do. That's what Democrats do. Democrats deliver, Republicans remove. And that there is no conversation right now about how disgusting Republicans are.
Right.
Like, no one's holding the Republican Party accountable enough.
Well,
the media is certainly not doing it. And
there's no mechanism. Here's the thing. First of all, I disagree. I think there's plenty of pushback on stuff, even from within maggotdom. They're freaking out about Epstein. They're freaking out about, like they talk about it on Fox, even about this, like, hey, prices aren't really coming down. And there was a huge spike in avian flu again. And they're like, we're not prepared for it. They just wiped out 6.6 million chickens again. That's going to drive the price of eggs up right in time for Thanksgiving. Like, they're freaking out about it. So I don't agree that no one's holding them accountable in terms of the media. Where I do have an issue, and again, this is about us and voting and consistently voting, is that there is no material way of controlling them, because in our Genocide Joe, what's the difference? Coin flip, Harris or Trump? Is there really a difference? As if she would have done any of this shit. Those folks make up a section of the electorate that either need to be shamed back in line by their own behavior, not by what I say, but because they are genuinely reflective about what the result of their actions or inactions were. That all the, and again, until Democrats start beating our chests about the programs we create as loudly as we decry them when they're torn down, we're going to be stuck in this fucking cycle. And I'm not going to sit back and let people pat themselves on the back for going down fighting about something where you could have had genuine progress. Now, before we move forward, I want to show you one thing that kind of ties into this whole Biden, where he is in the speech he gave, where he was able to say autonomous judiciary, and Trump Trump sounded like someone was actively hitting him with a 2x4 while he spoke. Let's see, there we go. This guy here, Remember this bit?
They
that
voted for
fucking
Biden.
guy.
Hold on. The people who voted for Biden.
They're like, what did I do?
Right.
Like, what did I choose? Like, how is this guy?
Yeah, you just can't listen to an interview where he's saying some of the stuff he says that just makes no sense at all. It's like you can't listen to those interviews and feel like you made a good decision. I don't know how you
Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple of days ago? He was talking about the Revolutionary War. He's like, one of the reasons why we lost the Revolutionary War, one of the problems with the Revolutionary War was they didn't have enough airports.
Did he really say that?
Like, what the hell?
Like, pull him.
I missed
It's
that.
crazy.
If you had any other job and you were talking like that,
Yeah.
they would go, hey, you're done.
If you talk like that to a
Wait for
doctor
it.
at your
Yeah.
medical exam to fight, they'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, like obviously they're not fighting. You would also here's 8 weeks of being helped out by a professional. Like
right. You might not ever do anything again.
No, it's it's one of the wildest things ever.
This is where Jamie interrupts, I think.
Insane.
Yeah.
Who is that guy? I don't know who that guy is.
It doesn't matter. He's a fighter guest or
Is he
something.
like a UFC fighter person? I don't know any of these
it's
people.
immaterial
I know who
because
that is.
all of this,
Yeah.
all of this is an idiotic, dipshit, unforced error by Joe Rogan, which he is still unapologetic for. And you know that whole, like, if he said that, we should just fucking pull him. All right, then explain to me what, a magnified fortune is, asshole. But listen to this.
Lighting you to protect. It's just people are so afraid of Trump being in office and
Yeah.
Republicans being in office.
A few moments later.
Hanging out with the guy, I'm like, man.
Well, it's just the media narrative. I mean, so many people were fed this lie that the Russia collusion.
Yeah.
Was
this the video you're talking about?
Let me see what this one says. I don't think it is.
By the way, the same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports.
Wait for it.
Yeah, that's it.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Did you hear the top of that sentence? You fucking moron. Wait, listen.
Just for the record,
Is that fake?
it's not fake, but he was referencing Trump saying that. Here's what Trump saying it in 2019.
Oh.
Donald Trump said something
Oh.
about that. He didn't say Jesus. He said a stable genius, and that's where the transcription.
Let me hear what it says. What did he say?
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he fucked up.
No, he didn't fuck up.
No, he fucked up? No.
No, he is a fuck up. You fucked up, Joe. No, he didn't fuck up. Biden made a joke about him fucking up, which as a comedian you would think is something you're aware of, the at least structure of how that fucking works. Biden was, let me help this out for the fucking kill Tony dipshits. He was roasting Trump. And
That's right.
And Joe, I have my own comedy club because I can't get laughs anywhere else. Rogan couldn't comprehend a roast. Didn't know the context, couldn't
wasn't
understand.
Listening.
Right. And
Also,
not only did that, not only wasn't listening, actively participated in idiotic disinfo on purpose, like of his own
Live.
free will and accord.
In the moment.
Talked out of his ass. And by the way, that's not the first time he's brought that up. He brought it up on the show, but I guarantee it. He yammered it to every fucking, to Tony, Heathcliff and all those guys, at their little fucking comedy garage sale that they do in that dump every couple of weeks. I guarantee he threw this around. Like, did you Biden thought we had airports in the revolution? He said it a bunch of fucking times. And he didn't.
So
and had he not mentioned it in front of Jamie and asked him to play the clip, and then the clip itself refuted what he did, and Jamie's job is to make sure that Rogan's only as stupid as he's still useful.
Okay.
Ground the fucking thing to a halt and said that. Do you think he ever walked that back and like, wow, well then in retrospect, Biden's line was funny. Biden's line was a good slam. That, you know, but the fact that Joe, I have my own comedy club because no one will laugh at me anywhere else, Rogan, can't get a joke. Can't understand a joke.
And millions of people listen to him.
Right.
That's what's also so frustrating, right? You and I are smart people who say smart things with humor, humor. And you get a nice, you get a decent audience, you know, around the two, right? And you have good people. I mean, sparklers are the best audience online because they're devoted and they're loyal, but they're also smart. And so when something like that, like you're the one who should have the #1 podcast, not that mook, because you're welcome. And in the last 10 minutes that we have, I would like to give everybody an assignment that's very important. Because while we're talking about all of these other things, and I'm personally frustrated by the lack of Republicans caring about the people who elected them. Now, we know that's a traditional thing and that's a historic thing and whatever. In this moment that we are living in right now, all of us human beings on the ground in the United States of America, November 1st, which is Saturday, you're going to see your healthcare premiums triple. And if you receive SNAP benefits, they're gone. And doesn't matter how much it is, they're taking it from you, even though it is actually illegal for them to be doing this. And I have a screenshot that I've shared all over. Like they're supposed to keep SNAP going regardless of what happens. They're supposed to, and they're refusing. So take that for what it is. Take it for what it is, which is Republicans are fine with their constituents not eating because of the Epstein files. That's where we are. That is the truth. That is the truth at its core. Your job as an American citizen this week is to call Republicans or email them or tweet them and use the facts to shame them. Because like you say, they can't be embarrassed, but they can be shamed.
Right.
So what I've started doing...
All the way around. They can't be shamed, they can be embarrassed. They can be embarrassed.
All of them. Did I say that? They can be embarrassed, but not shamed. So, but when you... And also like our friend Brian Karam says, just ask the question. So what I have been doing, I have a tab open on my computer for the list of Republican representatives by state, starting with Alaska all the way to Wyoming. Lisa, and we're seeing some movement in the Senate. Like Lisa Murkowski wants the government reopened because her constituents in Alaska are suffering terribly. Almost 10% of Alaskans are on SNAP. They also, however, which no one is talking about in the media, there's a humongous Typhoon Halong, obliterated indigenous communities all around Alaska, and they all had to be evacuated. Those who didn't die had to be evacuated, and they don't know if they'll ever be able to return home or rebuild. And what's happening in a shutdown? You can't get FEMA funds. The people of Alaska desperately need FEMA funds along with their SNAP benefits, and their health care premiums are going to triple right now. And that's across the country. And what do we always say? Red states are going to get hit worse than blue states. That's just true, because red states survive thanks to blue states. A little bit of socialism in there with your democracy. I have started shaming.
None of which is socialism,
embarrassing,
it's just
or
democratic
whatever.
Taxation. Right, but sure.
All you have to do.
All you got to do is give a shit.
Go to your.
Right.
Well, we do, right?
Yeah.
And so go ask the Google how many people per state are on SNAP benefits. Take a screenshot and then tweet it to those representatives or call their offices and say, why is like I did this morning, because I'm very angry. I get SNAP benefits. I only get $300 a month, and most of it goes to giving my cats chicken and maybe buying myself some salads. But other than $300 is not a lot of money, but it helps. And so I called the only Republican representative in Oregon, Representative Cliff Bentz, Bentz. He's representative for Oregon District 2. And I called his office a couple of weeks ago. And then I called again this morning. And the same boring blah woman is just like, well, I can pass along your comments. And I go, you can pass along my comments, but what happens? What happens when you pass along my comment? Nothing. Your
Right.
comms director didn't respond to my email. He doesn't respond to my tweets. I asked his Democratic colleagues at a press conference what they do, and they say he won't talk to them. So he won't talk to Representative Salinas Dexter Bonamici, who's my rep. He won't talk to anyone. What are we supposed to do? I told this woman on the phone, I said, I have this week only to fight for this. And I'm so frustrated that Republicans just don't care. And so my call to action, because, and someone in the chat was like, I don't like listening to Tara complain. We don't have a whole lot to celebrate right now, Pally. So, but again, I don't complain without offering solutions. My solution is take action, because I can't just sit here and watch it happen. Me personally. If you're a person who doesn't like to make phone calls, every single member of the House of Representatives has a website. You can go to their website and fill out their forms and say, this is what I'm mad about. But it is more effective if you do it directly where other people can see you doing it, because we all have social media. We all know where the Republicans are. We all know how to contact them. If you're not fighting, if you're not on SNAP benefits and you're kind of shrugging at this, don't, because your healthcare premiums are still going to triple. There's nothing for you to be shrugging at right now. There's not a lot for you to just let it go. I would say,
okay, hold
right
on.
now,
I think when people are shrugging, it's in, and I won't speak for anybody in the chat room, but I will say that a lot of this ship has sailed in the election last year, and we, like I said, these are two trains that have left the station that are heading towards each other. A few of them are ours in terms of our voters, or what we would think of as our voters, people who at least allegedly believe in the same things we believe, which is some form of universal health care, some, way of like working to deal with climate change and homelessness, and making sure that like medical and technological advances benefit mankind as much as possible, especially when they require our tax dollars, and maybe not having $1 trillion military budget until you have you're willing to have a $500 billion medical plan for all your citizens, for example, which wouldn't even require that. So I think a lot of people, though, are recognizing that with this presidency and with these Republicans, there's an element of brace for impact. It isn't necessarily that you're just shrugging it off. It's that this is kind of an inevitably, going to happen. There's going to have to be cleanup and help that occurs afterwards. So I would argue that people, while they could, I think you're right that you need to reach out to people so they know we're aware of who's crashing the plane. There's an element of make sure your mask on is before somebody else's, and then when when this shit starts happening, you're gonna have to start coordinating in your states, in your churches, in your any charity group you work with that gets food, food banks and those kind of things around the holidays every year are gonna need more help than they've ever had. If you have the means and the wherewithal, that's what you're gonna have to do, because right now they don't want to change this. I happen to think that I don't take for granted that the plans that people put forward, like that the Patriot Act was actually an act of patriotism, for example. And in the same way that I don't think that that everybody suddenly being on board in some cases for the legalization of all drugs, like Rand Paul is, and that kind of stuff, like happened in Portland, is about freedom or non-violent victimless crimes, but more about what, if we just let this go for a little while, we'll have a purge. These people will die. They will use until they are dead. If we stop trying to save them from themselves, they'll just end up killing themselves. And they did. Portland had to turn back its whole like legalization of everything because A, they didn't manage it well or think they had to manage it well, and B, they thought it would just kind of clear itself up because it was based on a propaganda kind of idea as opposed to real science. And this is no different than the Stephen Millers of the world being mad at Bill Gates because he's trying to cure malaria in Africa. To him, or AIDS or Ebola or anything else, to them, let it roll. If these people can't come up with their own cures, just let them die. Stop getting between them and Darwinism. That's where their thinking is. And so it is the only way this is going to roll back in a lot of these districts is apparently it's news to a lot of these red district Republicans, or at least they pretend that it is, or red governors, red state governors or others, that they live on the tit of the blue states. And until this money actually dries up next week, and the ramifications are felt all throughout their state, and they know they're trying to hide it, or their own people, like that woman who called into C-SPAN, for example. Until they see that, they don't give a rat fuck. If we're outraged about it and upset, even if it's on behalf of their constituents, to them, they think, well, this is just my way of getting rid of the poor in my state. This is how, like, we want this to kind of go through, because these people will have to pack up and move home, or move out of the state, or move to a state like California or New York or something, where there is a welfare state, or a substructure, or a safety net that exists to protect people. And this will be a great way to get everybody out of here.
Yeah. I would like to clarify for the people in the chat, I'm not taking the food out of the mouths of Black people with my big $300 SNAP benefits every month. And I don't get that money to feed my cats. I end up spending most of that big $300, the big $300 that I get for a full month of feeding. I end up spending most of it, not most of it, I mean half of it maybe, on canned chicken, because cat food's very expensive. And if I exclusively fed them on cat food, I would not be able to spend money to pay the rent or the other things. No one has, first of all, it's none of your fucking business, really, how difficult someone else's life is financially, unless they choose to share it with you. And just because I'm on a podcast, that doesn't mean I'm rolling in it at all. I've stopped asking for money because people don't like that. But what I am telling you is I have been on SNAP benefits for a little bit because of my unemployment situation. And if you think $300 is welfare queen numbers, then no. I feed myself first. Yes, my oxygen mask first.
SNAP is supplementary.
But also,
that's where the actual name comes from.
Not all.
It's also let me clarify something too, because we can get to the reads about how people spend it or whatever, and it's a weird spiral, right? Well, even still, it is. SNAP as a supplemental nutritional program exists because of the right to work insistence by Republicans that we not have just straight up welfare, and that some people, and this was, a balancing act between, like, you're on total welfare and you get $1 over the amount that would put you on welfare, and your welfare goes away. And then all of a sudden, you don't have the capability to be $1 over anymore, and you fall into poverty. So there needed to be a transition point, like Cobra Insurance or something, during a period of time. It's not as effective as in some ways as the nest that's created by welfare, but it's more mobile in that people aren't just cut off the second they try to get a real job or do something. They don't just lose everything all at once. So SNAP was there for people who temporarily, over a period of time, whether they have young kids or whether they're between jobs or their industry is shifting. Get used to that, by the way. There's a huge reason why SNAP itself is going to be a growing part of the welfare conversation, and why red states are full of it is because if your business is vanishing, if you're being put out of business by a new technology, SNAP is the first and primary way they're going to start delivering help to people, in that it is the food pantry when you need it aspect of a welfare system, and where they want to diminish any kind of, like, they talk about like generational welfare, or that's where they get the welfare queen idea. SNAP was there as this transitional point for whatever period of time that is. And I got news for people. SNAP is going to be increasingly the way that as workers lose their jobs to AI and automation and all that kind of stuff that I talk about on Friday AI with Rob, is going to be the delivery system for the transitional period where you're like, my whole fucking economic world is up in arms because I don't even know if I provide a service anymore that somebody needs. So I might need to retrain, retool, go back to school, that kind of stuff. And while I could work, at some job while I go back to school, it won't be enough to feed myself, and if you have a family or kids, SNAP will be the way that they will do that. So, and again, the first letter in SNAP stands for supplemental.
Supplemental.
It is not the entirety.
I can't wait until I don't. Yeah, no, I look forward to when I never needed it. I don't want to need it. It was the first, and by the way, I haven't been on SNAP like consistently for years. It's sporadic and supplemental. So anytime Like after I lost my job on the radio, which is back in 2009, and everyone's like, well, you can file for unemployment, which I did. But they're like, after a certain amount of time, you can file for SNAP benefits. And at that time, I was like, well, I'm not that bad. It's not that bad. I'm not down there yet. But then when I was, there's a humility aspect to it. And there's something you get people try to shame you when you ask for, it's hard to ask for help when you've been a very independent person and when you don't want to. I don't want to ask for help. We are currently in a moment where, if your limited set of skills is talking in a microphone about politics or writing or whatever, like I'm 5 feet tall and I'm 56. I'm not going to go out and, get a construction job because I'm physically not capable of doing that or whatever. Am I looking for work every day? Am I trying to do things and make things better? Absolutely. Am I up against something that's really feeling insurmountable in this moment? Yeah, but it doesn't stop me because I don't have the luxury of stopping. So if I don't want what I have.
Okay,
I want to
let me make the explanation as simple as I can for people out there, no matter what the issue is, as far as like SNAP benefits, especially for the people who might be losing them in the last, like the first week of November or whatever.
850,000 in Louisiana.
Right.
Johnson. 850,000 in Louisiana.
Right. All those people in the last 5 years post-COVID, because of a myriad of reasons, the cost of food has gone up 33%. The SNAP benefits that people get have not gone up 33%. And they have not gone up as a factor of that 33%, meaning that if it cost you, $300 to buy your groceries before, it doesn't cost you $333. It costs you somewhere closer to $450, depending on, because everything's in varying levels, because cost of everything else went up with it correspondingly, because everybody else's food costs went up and along with them. And as you try to reshore factories and as you bring stuff home, the price of everything's going to go up. And again, this goes more towards like the Japanese currency versus US currency argument than it does about, it's about supply shock and it's about reshoring. That's what the cost is. If you're going to have humans working in factories and men picking food, and you're going to not let immigrants do it under the table for a lower wage, you're going to have to either pay for a machine that does it, that has to be built by somebody with skills, or you're going to have to pay a person who's expecting a living wage and can unionize and is a citizen to do that very same job. And that's going to drive the prices up continually. It's not going to change. That price rise is going to continue. And so in the same period of time, most people's job prospects, even if they kept their job, their wages haven't gone up 33% with this. And they're not expected to anytime soon. And again, God forbid if they've had a child during this period of time where their expenses have gone up beyond even the extra cost of food. Your food expenses will go up 33% even when things are static when you have a child, and if not more. And so it's an order of magnitude for a lot of people. So there are going to be a lot more people needing SNAP benefits in rotation and on the regular, whether that are working, that are busting their ass, because we are in a transitional period in human life on the planet where we have moved from every time these assholes talk about the globalists, we got to stop the globalists and the globalists. Anytime you hear them bring that up,
I mean the Jews.
Well, they also mean that you have to remind them that that's fine if you want to believe that, but understand prices are going to go up by at least a third. If you want to cut off the world, like there are reasons, a myriad of reasons to grow more of your food at home for national security purposes. And medications and there's absolutely a reason for that, but more for safety reasons than normal commerce. And there, in all of these circumstances, whatever you do, if you bring it all back, you're like, we should make that here. Prices will go up. Period. End of story. And unless you're willing to find a way to make people's wages rise with that and work with that, or understand that the government, while it's engaging in this market manipulation by insisting that a factory that was over there, that was paid workers by a company that was in the United States, whether you like it or not, was making that shit at a lower cost, when you're insisting they move it here or they go out of business, the cost of making whatever the fuck they make or pick or process is going to go up. And that's not the fault of the consumer. That is the government intervening in a market system. It is why, by the way, when Fox did a poll recently, there was, and Glenn Beck freaked out about it. I think I showed a clip of it a few weeks ago. Or I may have just watched it. Or did I dream it? But he was saying that there was an alarming number of Republican voters, Trump voters, who believed that that had a positive view of socialism and believed that a socialist president will be necessary, and that they believe a Democrat would or should be in charge starting next time. And the one they were talking about, by the way, is Newsom.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's a given. I think our ticket in 2028 is Newsom Buttigieg. I think that's our ticket. And I think
it's a
really
great idea.
Ticket. Mm-hmm. It's a great ticket. I don't love the optics of two white men any more than most people. But I think that what we do to get we finally get a path to a woman president, or at least a woman of color as president, is a gay man as vice president, is a soft way to introduce.
Okay.
I'm just saying what this country is ready for. Not you and me. With the
psychological ladder. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but the idea that
for a white gay man than a black woman, it's bad and it's not great, but it's true. And the more
that somehow they're a rung on the same ladder is obviously problematic for a series of reasons. But
I know that. You and I know that. But what I am talking about is your average regular American who looks at stuff and doesn't pay as much attention as we do, and they are going to like the optics of a Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg ticket much more than if Kamala Harris runs again in 2028. And that's just true. I don't like it.
Hold on.
But it's true.
Biden-Harris won very strongly. Okay. Harris running in a short window on her own without a big buildup of another term to like get people to understand what kind of leader she would be and that kind of stuff is the same fight that Vance is going to face, and he's going to fail as well. Literally, they're talking about Rubio being his training wheels and trying to scoop up the Latino community. Well, obviously. I mean, look at Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. That's what they're talking about. And they're not doing it. And that's no more absurd. Wait, that's no more absurd than saying if we're going to have a white straight guy at the front of the ticket, we're going to need a white gay guy to make up for it. It's the same argument.
I'm just saying. It's just true. It's just true. I don't like that it's true. And hopefully those things will change going forward. But what I am saying is, if we're going to try to create another Democratic administration that reflects what America looks like, it will be more palatable for the larger electorate to see two white men than any people of color. But if it's two white, this is my point that I've been trying to make. If it has to be two white men, it can't just be two regular white men. There has to be something that reflects a minority community in one of those men. So
why?
Because it would because optics of two straight white men is not good.
No, that ship has sailed. I'm here to tell you.
I don't know that
because the inclusion of a gay man in the second position, as much as I'm for it, by the way, I would totally vote for that ticket in a heartbeat. Not a problem.
It's that gay man, not any gay man.
No. But he will be presented
on Fox.
But he will be presented as representative of or reflective of the fact that, hey, he's this and he's gay, and gay is a part of his identity that's meaningful, which will. I got news for you. There are a bunch of minority communities that will feel left out because of that very reason, and feel diminished and driven away by that. In the same way that they felt when a woman was running in second place, and it drives a bunch of them to the other side. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying you want to talk about a reality of something that once you talk about the optics of a team, as opposed to who do we have that actually cares about everybody, whether they're like them or not, is what matters.
That is any Democrat. That is true of all Democrats. It's choosing the right ones and making sure that we have faith in them, strong faith in them to lead.
Which is more important than any particular element of their ethnic minority status or their ethnic majority status. It just
would be great, but that's not the reality that we're going to face. Well, first, let's get through 2026.
No,
But
I'm
I
not
do
saying.
think, right?
No, I'm telling you that there's the same it's the same reason Harris had baggage, because there's a huge number of people in the country that won't vote for a woman president. And by the way, when people stack up and go, they had a Golda Meir and they had the fucking Iron Lady in England, and why do other countries have female leaders and we haven't? Ireland, they have they have prime ministers. A prime minister is
their third woman.
Is not a president. They do not have the same power or ability as a president at all. It is from a power standpoint in terms of the state, it's like the most popular governor in the country as far as what level of power they have. And they can be dropped within weeks. They can call a new election and get them the fuck out. It's not the same thing.
Why can't we do that?
Because we don't have a monarchy. Because we have currently so far. Because we have a president, and a president, the idea is the presiding administrator of Congress's laws. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, and here's the thing. Do I think that precludes a woman from being able to do the job? Obviously not. I voted for Harris. I voted for Clinton. I would vote for the next woman that Democrats run. But there is an intrinsic difference between the power structure of being the president of the United States and being the prime minister of fucking anywhere, as far as what they can do, what they can execute, and the decisions that they're made to make in regard to the state. Which is why a lot of these countries that would never let their country be presided over by a woman will have a female prime minister.
I see the point that you are making. Yes.
So there is a difference. So you can't. It's the same thing. I know we're over time, but it's the same thing when people talk about, like, when Trump talks about how we're 44th in the world because of education. I'm like, well, cut out 7 of the fucking red states and we're like 5th. So no. And the states that do the best are the ones that spend the most per kid. So this idea, like, we spend all this money and you slather it out. Well, if you remove the fucking suck that is created by Louisiana and places like that, based on federal tax dollars, whereas the states that have the best student outcomes spend more state and local tax money on those fucking kids and get almost nothing from the federal government. In the case of California and New York, they actually give more of their money away to the federal government that is given to places like Louisiana, who fucking wipe their ass with it and spend it on other shit, and their kids and their teachers have to do, like, fund drives to get crayons.
Right.
So that this one-to-one comparison shit. This is where, Mark Twain said lies, damn lies, and statistics. There's an element of, when people look at this, there is a huge difference between what happens, what a prime minister does and what a president does. And Trump thinks he's a monarch. That's the problem that we have to remedy for the president. He is the presiding administrator. He administers the laws and spending that Congress sets forth. That's the design of it. But we, Democrats, our side, the people who allegedly give a shit about public education, public health, public transport, making sure that there are commons and all these kind of things, that everybody is so inflating Zoran Mamdani's asshole like a fucking balloon to like cheer and cherish. Those same people are the ones who flushed the fucking Supreme Court down the toilet for half a generation. Who didn't recognize that, by the way, that Joe Biden spent the entirety of his presidency trying to make a Supreme Court that looks more like America. It did exactly what you're fucking talking about. And what happened? The electorate on our side, I can't speak for Republicans and maggots. I'm going to assume they are always going to vote the way they're going to vote. Let's talk the max amount of Republican voters that exist. They are 41% of the electorate. That means anytime Trump is in office and he's got the House and the Senate and the SCOTUS, that's because we fucked up. We didn't recognize the seriousness of the threat, and we weren't willing to take the progress as it comes based in reality. That we let the fucking TYT, if we don't get everything, nobody gets anything, mandate to destroy fucking regular order Democrats in the process of turning blue districts bluer and patting themselves on the fucking back when we should have been turning red districts purple and purple districts blue.
Purple districts blue. That is the mantra.
Fucking time. And I get
that is the mantra. I know you do, and we do. And this is why you and I need to just take like we need to do a field trip to Washington, and we need to do a presentation for the Democrats on how to Democrat, because they sometimes Democrat. I mean, my Senator Jeff Merkley held the Senate floor for slightly over 22 hours last week, speaking truth to power about how we are here and how we get out of here. Not enough people pay attention to what he said, but he said a lot of things that were very, very true. And so because we're so over, all I will ask of everybody who is still hanging in there, just make your phone calls or make those emails or do something today, this week, before the end of the week. Please do something. Every act of resistance matters, whether it is sharing this show or sharing our socials, which by now you know where we are. Share our Substacks and all of that. But whatever state that you live in, if you live in a blue state, congratulations. But call your neighboring red states. Call the representatives in your neighboring red states and say, your constituents did not elect you to protect Trump and the Epstein files. Your constituents elected you to protect them. And your constituents are losing their SNAP benefits and their healthcare premiums are tripling, because you have chosen loyalty to Trump instead of them. That is the messaging.
Sure, but I would go.
Tell them the truth.
I would shorten that. I would make it more concise. I would call if you have
use
a red.
Your own words.
If you have, if you have a Republican who is in your district or a nearby district, especially in your state specifically, call them up and go, I think so and so, whoever it is, Mike Johnson. I think Mike Johnson must be in the Epstein files because there's no reason to protect other people who are in there. It must be him. I think he's in the Epstein files. Why won't he, come out and say he's not? Like, why won't they release the Epstein files? Because I think my congressperson is in there too. I tell my congressman I think he's in the Epstein files because he is. That's why he doesn't want him released. It isn't just to protect Trump. I like
that one.
Don't make it,
I'm just going to tell everybody you're in the Epstein files, whether you are or you're not, because you're protecting them.
Right. What other reason could you possibly have? So obviously.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, prove me wrong. It'd be real fucking easy. Just release them.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to believe that Trump is in them, because we know he is. But it's another thing, like, why the fuck would they help him? Well, part of the reason is because they're in there too. So how do I know my congressperson isn't in there if they don't want them released? I'm just going to assume they are. Or their donors are, or their mate is, or whatever. I just call them up and go, I'm starting to think, and my friends all think, and I would like an answer to this, that our congressperson is in the Epstein files. There's no other reason to cover them as hardly as he does. And that's it.
I mean,
and
don't expect a response, but do it anyway.
Just the person you will be talking to won't be able to respond anyways. But the way to get them to move on it is if they're on the line. If they just think, well, people are throwing this at Trump's way, but he's Teflon and he'll be gone soon anyways.
He's all yours, man.
Right.
The other thing is to nail this shutdown to them. This is your shutdown. This is your responsibility. This is your fault.
The Epstein shutdown.
Your Democratic colleague. Yeah. Your Epstein shutdown and your Epstein ballroom and your Epstein fucking everything is Epstein. And Epstein, which is why I still want someone to go in and take that scene from being John Malkovich and change it to everybody's got Trump's head going Epstein, because it's Epstein. And I like that. I like that approach because, again, if you can't shame them, but you can embarrass them. And so go ahead. I mean, we know Howard Lutnick is in the Epstein files. Yep. He was Epstein's neighbor.
He bought his house from
me on Twitter.
He bought his house from a foundation or a holding company that Epstein started. Yeah. And the guys on Peanut Butter Dickhead shaved 10 years out of it. Was like, he was living there, and this guy Epstein moved in. I'm like, motherfucker, it's the other way around.
This is why the truth matters.
Why it matters.
Because we can't let their lies take hold. So please, please, please take some action this week to make sure that your neighbors don't die of starvation. I think that's pretty easy to do. We want to take care of our neighbors and and by the way, as we always say, and if there are any MAGA people in the chat, I want you to hear my words and know that they are true. I don't want you to die because of Donald Trump. I don't want you to die. I want you to live your life. I want you to feed your family and pay your bills and have your health care and not have your costs increase between $4,000 and $6,000 this year, which is what his tariffs are doing to you, MAGA, to you. And his ballroom is his top priority right now. And it's also interesting, and I'll leave you with this thought to ponder. First, the ballroom was 200 million. And then it was 250, and then it was 300, and now it's 350. And it's not because the costs are increasing. It's because it's 380 now. So what that means is not the cost of building it has increased, because nothing costs $380 million to build. That means more people
a lot
are
of
like,
things do.
I want to buy a favor. I want to buy a favor. Let
There's
me
a lot
buy
of,
a favor.
Hold on. There's a lot of things that can
So
be,
that's
especially if it's attached to the fucking White House. The idea that it would cost less than $1 billion is shocking, because you're going to want, like, if you're going to have world leaders in a fucking room with the president of the United States, and the idea that it doesn't have a bug out shelter built into it that's it can withstand a nuclear bomb is a little bit silly, or a fucking water slide that takes you straight into the bunker under the White House. It should be more expensive than that. But the idea that these assholes aren't paying for that part of it, they're paying for the top level part of it that's part of the blueprints. And when he shows the blueprints, you're like, motherfucker, you actually think we believe that that's what it looks like? Why would you show the blueprints of a White House adjacent building to the world anyways, you dumbass?
Fucking idiot. All it takes is one person to take a screenshot.
That's why
they're going to fuck up your plans.
Right.
Don't fuck.
Right.
All of this is fucked up, okay? All of it is fucked up. And that's their plan. That's their point. That's their raison d'etre, is to make sure that we're all like churned up about 8,000 things all at the same time. It is the chaos. And if we can ever, and somebody said today that Mike Johnson plans on keeping the government shut down to the end of the year. Nobody should accept that. Nobody should. Now, MAGA people should absolutely not accept that. Ever, ever, ever. That is your life being impacted, and impacted much worse than blue state people. Much worse. It will always be worse for you in the red states. Look at your COVID statistics. Look at unemployment statistics. Look at Medicare statistics. Look at SNAP statistics. Red states are going to suffer horrifically. Horrifically.
I'll tell you what.
And MAGA people will slowly find out. And then when they find out, it's going to be a little too late. And I don't want that for anyone. And look what's the measles and the mumps and the bird flu and the COVID. And I got my COVID and flu shot already. I really hope everyone else does. But I also hope everybody who is still listening takes action to tell somebody in a red state, hey, fucko, you're killing the people who elected you. That's the opposite of what your job description is. That's where we, I mean, come on now. Where are the Republicans worried about any of this?
In the
look at the states.
Yeah,
look
in
at
the last, which ones these are, right? Exactly. Although Washington State has 1.9 million this has a lot to do with your proximity to Canada, which is where the migrant birds are now moving south, and so they are flying over, and that's where you get this from. This is how this happens.
There's also proximity to Idaho, where there's a lot of farming and a lot of livestock stuff in Idaho, and also Eastern Oregon is more rural and has a lot of farmland. But look, red. As you go down, South Dakota, Utah, Iowa, Indiana, and also, Michigan is blue, but again, north, Canadian border. So Canadian border, blue states, and then everything else is a red state.
6.6 million cases.
Look at that.
These are
Thanks,
culled
RFK, you fucking asshole.
Right. These are culled birds that and this is, I think, the standout quote. It's happening pretty fast and doesn't seem to be slowing down, and I'm really unclear about what the U.S. approach is going to be, said Angela Rasmussen, a virologist at the Vaccine Infectious Disease Organizations at the University of Saskatchewan in Canada.
Gonna be?
Nothing. Because the government is shut down.
Let them all die.
What's going to happen?
Let them all die.
Right.
We don't care.
Not only have they fired a bunch of people at the top of these things and had to rehire them, but they will. But the idea that they have like an all hands on deck approach to this, like you're going to need, is just absurd. And this is what's going to, more than anything else, break the kind of resolve of Republicans to reopen and possibly, put the ACA subsidies back in, is because there's going to be life goes on, and a bunch of their own constituents need those subsidies more so than blue states.
They do. Yes, they do. And they need to be reminded of it. And they need to be reminded of it where other people can see them being reminded of it. Because one person holding someone accountable is meh. Thousands of people holding one person accountable is a something.
Oh,
And
and
so
maggots.
right?
Maggots who are like, we want to pass 12 different bills and we want to make sure that you can't just have these things, these rolling funding things happen, right? That was that was one of their big pushes last time. It's all Chip Roy, right? He's on this committee still drafting this shit up. At USDA, the cupboard is pretty bare when it comes to human resources. Why? He added that funding in the Republican budget law is held up as long as a farm bill isn't passed. Well, guess what? Guess what doesn't get passed while there's a government shutdown? Guess what doesn't get passed as long as the Congress is out of session?
Everything.
Yeah. The CDC team, which they fired, was rehired, can sequence these things, but delivering this stuff, making sure that all the farmers that need it have it, and that they're on top of this spread, that's what falls apart. That's why we have never been, it's you want a little bit of doom scrolling from me. We have never been more vulnerable to a bioweapon attack in our history. I mean,
100%. And this is also what I was talking about when they were trying to confirm RFK. I'm like, that guy gets in, we are vulnerable to bioweapons attacks, period. Because when you eradicate vaccines deliberately to make a population more vulnerable, you're a fucking murderer and you belong in prison, RFK Jr. And I mean, we could do a whole other hour just on him and everything that he has done to destroy Americans' health. And that MAGA is like, please make me less safe. Please make me less healthy. Please make me hungrier. Like, I don't get it. There is a point where you stop supporting things that are against your best interests. And I believe what you were saying earlier, a lot of the MAGA people, even the most devout ones, are literally finding out what they voted for. And we also said this last time. I think I said this to you last time, in that, like, what does it take? And what it takes is for them to turn their backs is when Trump's lies stop comforting them and start hurting them. And that is now. I wish it was a little bit earlier in this month, because the shutdown has been going on for a month or a little bit longer than a month, which is unacceptable. And the only other shutdown that was longer than the one that we're having now is the one that Trump did in his first administration.
Right.
And also his approval ratings are lower now than ever. So congratulations. Woohoo. He's such a loser that he can even lose to himself. Congratulations. That's what you did.
Tara Dublin, who doesn't even rock, go to taradublinrocks.com, get a copy of her book.
Thank you, everybody.
And
buy my book and do the things and make the calls and save America.
Before you leave, I feel like since I doom scrolled everyone, I feel like I owe you guys a piece of good news that's particularly annoying to maggots. So I think I can do both at the same time.
I like that.
I can give good news for everybody, including maggots, but that will upset maggots. This is a good one. Okay. Turns out,
bring it in,
that the SARS vaccine, the mRNA vaccines, when taken during cancer treatment, help your body fight cancer. That the way it primes your immune system makes it also attack the cancer cells better than without it. And so people who got their SARS-CoV-2, which is COVID-19 mRNA vaccines for their updates, even if they get the old one during their time under doing chemotherapy or fighting cancer of any sort, even if they haven't began treatment, so far it shrinks tumors and it helps your body fight the cancer naturally. It primes your immune system to be on its best behavior, as it were.
I like that. That's good news. Thank you for sharing good news. And especially for someone like myself, I'm 100% Ashkenazi Jewish, and we have the highest incident of cancer on the planet. And I'm very proactive with my cancer screenings. I get my annual mammogram. I had a colonoscopy earlier this year, and I don't have to go back for 5 years. So that's great. But I'm also part of the Healthy Oregon Project, which I'm waiting for my results. It's sponsored by the Knight Cancer Institute, and you spit in a tube and you send it off, and then they let you know what cancers you might be susceptible to in the future. because you have indicators in your, in your DNA. So news like that is really helpful for people because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe sometimes the U.S. government doesn't want you to die. Hey,
what a weird.
That's a good thing.
Especially if you're an American, one would think. Even then, like,
it's kind of hard to. We're gonna have to kind of like reframe. Once we get Democrats back in power, we're gonna be like, wait a minute. I remember what it was like to live under a president who wasn't actively trying to kill us. I like this so much better.
Right.
That's great.
That's right.
Yay. Well, okay, everybody. I'll see you next Monday. Try not to die this week and do something good. Portland's not on fire. We're not on fire.
Yes, you are. Bye. All right. Bye.
Goodbye, Portland. You make no sense. Renaissance mayors on a latte fence.
All right. Goodbye, Portland. Oh, thank you, Kale Link. Appreciate that. Thanks for sticking with me through the extra half hour, kids. If I get wound up by the morning show, especially talking about the stuff that I regularly talk about, I'm eventually going to land on the idea that we have a responsibility for the mess we are in, and therefore we can make it better by responding. And if anybody's like, they're not even going to have elections, we'll make them have elections. Simmer down. We'll cross that bridge. I will, don't pop balloons that haven't already been popped. How about we try and reinflate the ones we know exist? I'm not going to panic about shit that hasn't happened yet when we've got, emergency work to do now about actual stuff you can do. Yes. So take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. I insist. Do I have the whole song or I didn't. I just cut the whole thing. That's right. I'm going to go out on my on the original theme song because I just feel like some days you need it. All right. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you guys this afternoon at 3 o'clock Pacific time. You're going to be all right, people. You're going to be all right. Thank you guys so much. The Venmo works. You can give it a shot. And I think it was it Robin who asked me about the necklaces? We'll figure it out. I'll find a way to get some of them. I need a variation of them made before I can send them out. Wish me luck. Thanks, Wireless Mike. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, 56 Nick Rich. Russ, thank you. Jerry, thank you so much. Rox rolls on. Yes. gladly tell you all about it. Blue Voter, keep at it. Thank you. Thanks, George. Ciao.